Welcome back, people, to Spurs Kings TV with your boy and your host, Ashmatic, alongside my co-host, Maron from Spurs Kings TV as well. We have a very important show today to discuss some matters on Spurs. Marlon, you've got a few questions. Take it away.
So we set out and asked the people three solid questions about since the last video. So everyone in the last video, how they felt about Ange and everything like that. But this time round, we went slightly different because obviously last international break completely, was just after Ipswich. This one, we're in a bit of a pickle. So the three questions I asked the creators were, where are you now since the last video we did about Ange? 2, can we win the Europa League? And 3, if he was to be out this summer, who's your number one target? But if he stays, what does he need to succeed at the club? Take it away.
So Ange, has he got a way back? At the moment, for me, I'm not quite happy with where things are going at the moment. I just feel like he's a manager, and I'm not going to compare it to a great Sir Alex Ferguson, where he wasn't really tactical, but he was a guy that was a man manager, motivated his people, and let his coaches get on with things. And that's pretty much how I see Ange. Unfortunately for Ange in this day and age, these coaches at the moment, they're really good, they're really tactical, and they're hands-on. I think we needed something a little bit different moving forward. If Ange is to succeed, just to run it forward a little bit forward, I think he would need... It's a tough one. I think he needs a bit of fortune. I think a lot of fortune on his side, and the right players to come in, and players like we've all spoken about a defensive midfielder, someone that has intelligence, nowhere to be on the pitch, but also a good talker. So they're almost like a second coach, but on the pitch, and they're telling everyone where to be, etc., etc. So we're not getting done, and they're quite defensive-mindedly because we're quite an attacking team. But I think just to add that little bit of balance, you need someone that's going to be defensively minded when things aren't going too well. The typical things, a bit of a leader in that kind of sense, where someone can galvanize that team when things aren't going too well, and he can smell the danger before it actually happens. I think that's what Spurs are lacking. And then someone else also that can, I've always said it before, pass from deep, it's a little bit deeper, whether it's short passes or long passes, he can mix it up. I think that's a profile that we're slightly missing, almost like a character type. If people want to, associate a player, put a name to it, I think just a bit more depth as well, where the quality doesn't drop off at times, and then hopefully, football's all about momentum and self belief and confidence, and I think, especially in that midfield, I feel like a few players have dropped off, and their confidence have withered, in my opinion. So that's me pushing ahead with those questions. Manager-wise, if I go straight into that as well,
number one target. We don't want anyone else. We want if you were to sack him tomorrow, who is the first person, the only person you want Spurs talking to?
Well, I'll go a bit different then. I'll go for Stuttgart's manager. He mixes between a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-4-2 defensive shape. So against the teams that like possession, he's able to drop into a 4-4-2. We'd be slightly more defensive, hit teams on the quick transition. I think that suits us a lot more. And he coaches that as well. He's a coach, so he will be able to coach that system a lot more. And that goes back to my point. Someone that's a bit more hands-on, someone that can get on the grass and stand there with the players and move the ball, say, look, change your body shape. You stand here, create scenarios where, okay, we did this wrong, but I need you to do this now, etc. I I like what he's done with in Germany. I think he plays a lot through the middle, but the reason why he plays through the middle is to allow the forward players to run in behind, and so his midfield two or midfield three, they're the ones that create from that kind of middle position. So again, it comes down to that kind of player profile that I kind of want, and they've got a player that I do really like in Stiller. He's a player that I think he's the third or second most creative player in the Bundesliga, and in the middle third, he I think he's second highest in terms of medium to long passes in that area as well. So Spurs typically build on one side when we're trying to build up, and the side we like to build out of is the left hand side, in my opinion, when I'm watching it. But the stats actually say from the right hand side, not right attacking third, but the right middle third, that's where a lot of our possession is created in terms of trying to create goals. So that would be Poro / Kulizeski, that side. That's where most of our creativity comes from. But I wouldn't mind a distribution of a player that, similar to Kulizeski, that could either break the lines through carrying or break the lines through passing. I would prefer passing. So we just need to kind of get that traditional six or centre midfield, defensive midfield or centre midfield that can pass through the lines in that particular area. So yeah, I'm going to go for the Stuttgart manager. And also, as one thing as well, he does play down the sides because most teams do play down the sides, but he's got in terms of playing down the sides, I think he's about, I don't know, he's in the bottom half for creativity down the sides. But when he does create down the sides, I think he's either second or third in terms of goal creation. So when it does go down that side, it's efficient. So that's what I like as well, that his teams are quite creative. And he's done well with the journey with Stuttgart. Stuttgart started, I think they're on the 16th. So they're near that relegation side, where similar to where we are. We're obviously 14th, but we're joint 16th or 15th, whatever you want to call it. All on the same points as the two teams below us. So he's managed to come from Hoffenheim, where he was. Went to Hoffenheim, he finished 9th, and then he went to Stuttgart, and they recruited him, and then he got them into Champions League position with players like Garassi, who's now at Dortmund, and he's developed a few other players from that team as well. One thing I'd also mention as well, he does come from RB Leipzig, the academy set up. He used to manage their reserves, so he's got the IQ and the education from the Man United interim manager, the German one. I forgot his name, Ralph Ragnick. So he's got that education, and he's a well-renowned manager and talent spotter. So that means his football IQ, in terms of football ID, in terms of identifying top talent, he's able to do that. And also, he was in part of the Bayern Munich academy as well, in terms of managing as well. So he's got knowledge from Bayern Munich as well. And his father actually was a former Bayern Munich player and manager, and he's actually the president of Bayern Munich at the moment. His father as well, so he's well regarded in Germany.
Yes or no? Can Ange win the Europa League?
Could definitely win it. You've got to be in it to win it. You've got to be in it to win it, man. That's what I say. Football's a funny game, man. And we've beaten teams like Frankfurt before in the Champions League. So, I mean, it's 50-50, isn't it? It's a 50-50 dice. I think, you know what? It's not easy because Frankfurt I think they're fourth in the Bundesliga, but they somewhat dropped off a little bit since they sold Mamouche, and they're relying heavily on the striker. My mind's going blank today. They're relying heavily on Ekatike, who I rate, I've actually got I did a video on him about 2 weeks ago. I haven't released it yet, so maybe on our next show I might look at him. I'm not sure, or maybe leading up to the game. But yeah, Ekatike is someone I like. A lot of people say he's not physical enough, but I think he's got more enough physicality. He's quite athletic, quite lanky, but good dribbler, good hold up, good link up play, can run in behind as well. He's got speed, good finish. I used to play in a two with Marmouche, do you know what I mean? So I really like him, and the Newcastle have identified him as a target if they do sell Isak. So that means like he's in the mode of Isak, that style of player. That's what they're looking for. So anyone that Newcastle look at, I'm looking at Savva. I'll be honest with you.
On that note, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Please leave comments in underneath. We'll read every single one afterwards as well. But to the first person, take it away. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
What's up, Spurs Kings TV? Sim from We Are Tottenham TV here. I've got 3 questions that I've been asked to answer. The first one, where am I with Ange right now since the last video? Not too different. I still think, look, at the end of the day, we are where we are in the league, and he knows he's under pressure. He knows he's got to kind of deliver something between now and the end of the season, whether that be Europa League, a bit more consistent form. Obviously, we know the league position is not going to improve too much between now and the end of the season. The best we can really hope for is maybe just about a top half finish or something like that. But even that is looking unlikely at the moment. I think he needs to show that he can get this team going again and back to the levels that we've seen it at times during his tenure, to kind of reinstill a bit of faith from the fan base and a bit of belief potentially in a lot of the squad in terms of, can he get us back to where we were? And I know a lot of people saying, well, we've never been good and all these different things. I've seen us play extremely well under this manager, and we've, in my opinion, I think we have been massively derailed this season for a number of reasons, injuries and inconsistencies, young players bedding into the team. And it's led to the position we're in, which Ange, has to take responsibility for. It's under his tenureship, 100%. I don't think he's all his fault, but he's not blameless. And he's been part of the issue while we are where we are. There's no doubt about it. So I still believe he's a good manager. I really do. I do believe, even if he does move on from Tottenham this season, at the end of the season, which is looking not unlikely at this point, he'll go on to do a good job in his next club, probably. If he, a bit of thunder, maybe some people aren't happy with what I'm saying, but I like him. I do think he'd be a good manager for us if we can just get through this season and get through this period. Lots riding on Europa League. Has to improve the league form. But if those things don't happen, I think the club will look in another direction. I don't blame them for doing that. And I do think if Ange can get through this last period, I would like to see what an Ange team looks like next season with another summer. But if we end up finishing, 13th, 14th, and we end up with no trophy, it's hard to justify him staying in a job. So I think he'll have to leave probably at that point. I have to agree with that. But I do think he's a good manager. I do like him. I think he plays great football. And I just think this season has just really gone wrong for a number of reasons. Can we win that Europa League? I think we've got a chance. I think Van de Ven, Romero, when they're fit, we're a different team. We're a much better team. Obviously, Dante's injured now, so that's obviously creating another issue. But I think we've already seen with them back in the team, defensively we looked a lot more solid. Even against Fulham with Romero back, we looked a lot better defensively. RZ, they barely had a kick. So I think things are improving defensively with them back in the team. So if we can take that into Europa League, I know we've got some good teams to play, but I do think we could do something. I'm not saying we are going to win it. I don't think we're even favourites for the Frankfurt tie. If we go up against Lazio, I don't think we're favourites for that. If we go up against Bilbao in the final, I don't think we're favourites for that. So each step of the way, we're going to have to, up our game massively and play a lot better than we have been doing. But we are capable of that. We've seen that under Ange, and we are capable of being a lot better team, especially if Van de Ven and Romero are there. So I think we got a chance, but we're not favourites by any stretch. Who would be my number one choice? Obviously, a lot of people pointing at Iraola and Marco Silva. I like the guy from Stuttgart, but today's just signed a new contract, so he's not going to be available. A lot of people saying Pochettino, but he's got the US. He's going to be at the World Cup. I don't know. I don't know where we go, to be honest. Probably Iraola, but I don't see it being a massive departure from what Ange is doing. I know he's doing a great job at Bournemouth. I like him. I like Ange, though. He plays a lot of kind of chaos ball. He kind of does a lot of high pressing, a lot of running. I know we might not be in European football next season, but if we are, you add European football into how he plays. Could we run into similar problems that Ange has done this season? It remains to be seen, but I think I'll go for him just because I like the way he plays football. He's younger, maybe he has a different perspective on certain things. What needs to change? I think we need a new medical team potentially. I think that's been a big problem. I think we need a one or two just more established players in the first team, albeit the youngsters are really coming along. And we're seeing the likes of Odebear and Bergval and Gray starting to really perform in these last few weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop over the next couple months of the season. But I think definitely there's the problems with the medical team, and from what I can see, it's hard to know really. We're not in there, but definitely problems with the medical team, and yeah, just a few more established players. But I like the young players we got. I like how to make up the squad. We could be okay.
It is such a glorious day outside. I thought I'd film outside. So, yeah, to answer your three questions. The first one, where am I at with Ange right now? You know what? This is a very, very difficult one for me because I know a lot of people, like a lot, are just like completely Ange out no matter what. My thing is I'm taking it as like where we are right now. League completely finished. Arguably his fault that we got there, for sure. I'm not denying that. But at this very moment, the league is done. I personally couldn't care less if we finished like anywhere from 10th to, 17th. We're not going to get relegated because the three at the bottom are just by far the worst. So anywhere in that sort of 10th to 17th we can finish and it won't make a difference to us at all. There's no Europe, there's no relegation. It's just basically nothing. So what we are left with is being in the Europa League. And for me personally, there just aren't any options out there in terms of managers that I think we could get right now to fix us in time to compete properly for the Europa League. So for me personally, I'd rather stick with Ange. I'm sticking with Ange right now to see what happens for the rest of the Europa League campaign. Now, that is mainly because the options are keep Ange or bring in Mason for the rest of the season. And me personally, I've got nothing against Mason at all. I think he's a fantastic guy, but I can't see him doing any better than what Ange can. And look, we've started to get our main players back. I think the main key for me, to be honest with you, is actually more about keeping Romero and Van de Ven fit. If we keep those two fit, we have more of a chance. So I'm just in the camp of keep Ange for now until we see what happens in the Europa League. If we win it, incredible. If we don't, then I think we can move on to a new manager and reassess in the summer. Sorry, Van just going by. This is the problem with filming in a bike lane. Now, and that kind of leads on to the second one. Can we win the Europa League? Look, I think, let's be real. We can. There's definitely a question that we can because, well, one, we were favourites at the beginning. For somehow, we're still favourites now. But I think tournament football is just totally different to form league. I think people got to remember the last time we won trophies, 2008, we finished 11th. 1999, we finished 11th. When we last won the European, well, what is currently the Europa League, was I think 1984. We finished 8th then. All right, they're better than what we're at now, but I think my point is more, you don't have to win. You don't have to do well in the league to win a trophy. So we definitely can. The problem is, again, like I said before, it just totally hinders on, can we keep Romero fit? Can we keep Van de Ven fit? Because I think Romero is one of the most underrated players on our side. We saw it at Fulham. The moment he got taken off, it all went to shambles. And what he offers us is just incredible. So, yeah, it's definitely possible. But I do think our track record goes to show that, you know what, facing 4th in Bundesliga, if we were to win and then playing Lazio in the semi-final, they're doing well in Syria. And then obviously you're looking at either a Man United, Athletic Bilbao. it's not an easy run-in at all. Easier than previous seasons with no Champions League teams, but it's not easy, and it's going to be a struggle. So we definitely can. I just think it's going to be too much of a struggle for us this season. And then on to your final question about if he were to get sacked, who would my number one be, or if we keep him, what needs to change? I think when you look at the options of people available, I'm talking like probably your Iriolas, Thomas Frank, Marco Silva, these sort of managers. I think for me the best one out of all of them is Iriola, because I think he's the closest in terms of the style of football. His is a lot of heavy press, tactics, winning the ball high up, a lot of chaos, to be honest with you. And that kind of suits what the players are used to. I think we need to start getting into that run, similar to how Brighton ran. They already know the next manager fits the previous players and the previous style to make that transition a lot easier. So we need a manager similar to Ange in terms of the style of play, just with obviously better tactics and whatnot. And I think Iriola fits the bill better for that. In terms of someone who I personally really like, I like Glasner at Palace. Obviously they're up and down, but that's just because Palace, the team isn't the level that we want to get to. But in terms of tactical masterclasses and what he offers the team as a manager, I think Glasner's probably one of my number one choices. There's a lot of European managers that people are offering, like Stuttgart's manager and so on and so forth, but I don't really know too much about them personally. But then, like, am I in a case of keeping him in? It's a weird one. If we win the Europa League, I think you have to keep Ange. It would just seem ridiculous. He's our first manager to win the Europa League in 40-odd years, and you sack him. I can't see that happening. But obviously, because that's such a slim case, I think, look, realistically, you've got to probably move on, given how poor this season and the last couple of years have been. I think you just need to make sure that the next manager fits the style of play that we want, just with, obviously, better in-game tactics. Hope that all makes sense.
Yo, it's Billy T here to talk about Ange. Everyone knows that I was a big supporter of Ange when he first joined. I really bought into his philosophy. I really bought into his style of play. But things have gone downhill, man. Things have gone downhill in particular this season. This season has been a real test for us Ange supporters. It's been the worst in my lifetime. And I'm finding it difficult now to find anything left. So find those green shoots that help me, support this guy as our manager anymore. And believe me, I'm trying, man. I'm really, really trying. And the thing is, right, so, I think the thing which sums up Ange's era of Tottenham, it's always a matter of what ifs. What if Romero stayed fit? What if we built this person? What if we, Van de Ven didn't have his injuries and all that kind of stuff? And really, if we stop kidding ourselves, or if I stop kidding myself in particular, what we've seen has not been good enough. And there are no excuses anymore. This January, Ange was out there begging for players, in the press conferences. He got Danzo and Telm, which for me, in the last couple of days of the window, I don't think that was good enough as a transfer window. But, a couple of months down the line now, and we got most of our injured players back, and we haven't seen that upturn in form, which, I was praying for and I was begging for. So I'm at a point now where my support for this guy is really, really running thin, and I don't want him to be our manager next season. Having said that, while he's here this season, I will support him fully because I want to win that Europa League. Can we win that Europa League? It's not looking good, bro. It is not looking good. The big turning point for me and Ange was that Alkmaar game, man. That first leg. That was our biggest game of the season. And we were so flat. We didn't turn up. And that, to me, was a manager that is unable to inspire his players anymore. And you think, right, we'll go into a league game. He'd probably put a rocket up and them shouting at me. We've seen the half-time team talks last season where they come out a different team second half. You'd think maybe for that Bournemouth game, they'll come out same again, if not worse. Fulham game, same again, if not worse. And I'm questioning now whether this guy can even inspire these players anymore. They defend him publicly, but are they defending him on the pitch with what their performances are showing? I don't think so, man. Having said that, while we're in the Europa League, we've got a chance, haven't we? It's a gambler's chance, man. It's a gambler's chance. I think the Frankfurt game is going to be really, really difficult. A much more stern test than Alkmaar. They're fourth in the Bundesliga, joint third at the moment with Mainz. And it's going to be a really tough test, man. I'm not really sure if we're going to get through it. In fact, I have very, very little faith that we will. Make no mistake about it. If we play like we did against Fulham, Bournemouth, or in that first leg, we're going to get whacked. We're going to get whacked, bro, and it's going to be embarrassing. These are a decent outfit. So I would love the big man to take home that Europa League trophy. But for me, I'm like a gambler. I like to gamble a lot. And this is like throwing your last £5 on a roulette machine. One number. It's not a gamble, you know, a smart gamble where we could win, might not win, got a good, decent investment on it. This is that last roll of the dice, and I have no faith that it's going to come through. So where do we go next? Where do we go next? I think we need something big. This has been the most pitiful season in memory. You know, the fan protests, and big up for supporting those, by the way, have shown that fans have had enough. We need something big at this point. So where do we go? Inzaghi, Serie A. Sitting top of the league, in the last 8 of the Champions League, smashed it at Inter. Let's go and get him. And you might be thinking, why on earth would he join Tottenham? I'll tell you why. Money. All these guys will always come for the money, and we can afford it, trust me. With one of the richest football clubs in the world, go and give him an offer that he can't refuse, not just because he's Italian. Get Inzaghi and save Tottenham. Up the Spurs.
What up, everybody? It is the mad scientist himself, Too Much of E. Make sure you guys subscribe to Spurs Kings TV and to my channel, shameless plug, because I want to hit 1K. Marlon hit me up early as hell in the morning to answer these questions, but then also gave me 5 minutes of time. And when I asked him why, it's because he said that's all the time he can allow minorities, which I ain't gonna lie, is crazy. I'm gonna quickly run through these. I hope you guys are enjoying the video so far. Let's get into it. Where are you at now with Ange since the last video? What last video? I actually don't know what video that is. I've been Ange out since Tamworth. I don't know if that coincides with your last video when it was dropping, but no idea. Can he win the Europa League? Yeah, he can win it. I'm hoping he can win it because I need a trophy, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I don't care if I'm Ange out. I want this manager to win a trophy while he's here. Please bring us the Europa League so we can all just back you and back your process. It's been too long, man. It's been too long, please. Look, the players are good enough to win it. I've always said that, and I do believe that the manager has the capabilities of taking this team to the Europa League. It's really just if he can learn to switch his tactics up, which he's already said he ain't gonna do, so is it delusion? Maybe. But I know the players are good enough. It's just, can the players overcome this manager? That's pretty much where I'm at. So if I'm Ange out, number one, replacement to replace him next season. If I'm Ange in, what needs to change at the club for him to succeed? Well, I'm going to answer both of these because I can't lie, Marlon. These questions were kind of... Hey, now I am Ange out, so I'll answer that first. Number one, replacement. I don't know. Don't know. I don't watch enough football apart from Tottenham to have a definitive answer about what manager can come in and do this and do that. I'm not a psychic, so I'm not going to sit on here and act like I know the perfect manager for this scenario. I don't. I'm sure you guys have heard like the same managers from the same people over and over and over. Allow all that. I'm not here for that. What the All I'm ever going to do is just assess who's here. Player, manager, owner, doesn't matter. I don't know who's going to replace them. Whoever replaces them will get my full support until I see the signs that they're and they need to go. If Ange is going to be here, which I think he is going to be here, the main issue, I'm sure, again, everyone has talked about Levy, them, their mum, their non-existent dad, their brothers, their sisters, their step bros, their step sis. They've all said Levy is the problem. Lange is the biggest problem for me because Levy has spent money. Whether we think it's enough money and whether we think it's going to be enough for the future, which it isn't, he has at least spent money. He spent, what, 400 mil? The problem is that Lange is not profiling the players correctly. That's really the issue. Whether Ange is going to succeed or not, Levy for sure isn't going to put the top money down, which is what we need. But at that point, you can still bring in good to decent players who can fit the system. And we haven't even managed that as a club, and that's down to Lange. Ange was never going to succeed in the first place because his head of a transfer guy doesn't know what he's doing. And it's basically just brought in terrible players who don't fit what Ange is trying to do. So I would say they need to bring in someone, whether it's Paratici or whoever the hell, who can actually profile players correctly and give Ange the type of player he needs if he's going to stay. Yeah, those are the questions. On to the next person.
This is a video for Marlon, Ash and everybody at Spurs Kings TV. So the 3 questions you've asked me. Where am I at now with Ange Postecoglou? Do I think he can win the Europa? And if I don't want him, who should come in? Well, look, I think I was one of the very first within this community to say that I absolutely can't stand this manager. 18 months precisely I've been Ange out. Since he played that crazy high line against Chelsea, I have not wanted this manager. And I've seen nothing since that suggests to me that he is even average at his job. I think he's the worst manager I've ever seen at Tottenham. Look, he's had so many opportunities to change it. He's had so many opportunities to make it tighter, to stop the inverted right back. He's had so many opportunities to actually build a midfield partnership. So many opportunities to stop us being so gung-ho, and he's never ever changed it. And for me, that means that he's never going to change. I'm being told by everybody that followed his career in Australia and Scotland and Japan that this is what he does, and unfortunately it worked in those leagues. It's not going to work here against the better teams and the better players. Every manager outsmarts him, and for me, I just think, listen, I think he's atrocious. So you know where I'm at with this, Marlon. I don't want him as the manager. I didn't want him going into this season, and I'm embarrassed that he's at our football club. So do I think he can win the Europa League? I don't think he can win the Europa League. I do feel that we have a few players that are capable of producing moments that could, but I don't think we will. I think he's been very lucky to date, very lucky to date. He's had a very easy run, has not had to play anybody of note. When he did, Galatasaray beat us, drew with Roma, drew with Rangers, Alkmaar beat us in the first leg. For me, we're now going to be playing better teams, and I can't see him beating them. Last but not least, who do I want to replace him? I would love Iriola. I'd love Glasner. I'd love Marco Silva. I'd like Xavi, as in the ex-Barcelona manager. I'd like Holness, as in the Stuttgart manager. There's so many I would have. I'll be honest, I'm at the stage, Marlon, where I would have you as manager. I can't stand what this manager has done to this football club. The stats are undeniable, and at the moment, we're on for our worst season in 40-odd years. Take care, guys. Everyone, please like and subscribe. These are great lads, great channel. See you later. Bye-bye.
Hi, Jim here from Oso Spurs. First question is, where am I with Ange Postecoglou? I'm still of the belief that we should give Ange Postecoglou the early part of next season, give him a chance to see if this really is down to personnel and injuries, or whether it is down to a system, tactics, etc. I don't think we'll have a clear answer on that, and the fan base will always be divided on that until we have that clear answer by giving him that final opportunity to show it. There is obviously a lot of attention around Europa League or bust. To me, it's more about needing to see now when we return from the international break, and players who've just returned from long layoffs have had time on the training pitch, etc. It's a time where we have to see significantly more consistent performances. I think if we go into the next part of the season, playing Chelsea next and Southampton, and there isn't two strong performances there. So I think if Spurs come out with some kind of result against Chelsea, if it's a draw, great, considering how poorly we performed there in recent years, and then we have a good performance against Southampton and kick on to come out against Eintracht Frankfurt with a chance of winning the second leg, I think there's reason to give him more time. However, football is football, and what I think is irrelevant. If we get smashed by Chelsea and crash out the Europa League and don't beat Southampton, look, it doesn't matter what I think. I don't think there's any choice. There will be a decision made that this is going to be his last season as Tottenham manager, which I think would be a huge shame for me personally. But there you go. Can he win the Europa League? Yes, I believe he can. I think the way we've been playing the season has been better suited to cups. If you look at the eras we had under Pochettino, for example, when we did really well in the leagues and really built a beautiful, consistent side playing really nice football, we crashed out the cups really early most seasons. It was, I think, only in one season we made it out past the second round in more than one cup. So we crashed out first round season after season after season, often to mediocre opposition. And that was partly to league prioritisation. I get that. But I also think it's around the style of play we were playing, and I think some managers are better suited to cups than some are to league performances. Conte is another one who's very suited to leagues formats and not so suited to juggling the cups often. But there you go. So yeah, I think we can win the Europa League. I think the odds are better sticking with him in the Europa League and giving him the shot. I think he has, regardless of that league form, he's earned his position here in the Europa League. And look, if he goes out of the Europa League and the poor league form continues, that's it. The dynasty of this period is all but over. If out, who do we replace him with? I think for me, I'm looking at what the fans want, what the club needs, and where we are as a squad, and who's available. So I think what the fans want reassurance of is the next person has Premier League experience. So that narrows the list dramatically. Then it's who we can get. that narrows the list even further. And I think that leaves pretty much 3 names. That's Kieran McKenna, Thomas Frank, and Iriola. When you look at those managers, they've all got strengths and weaknesses. But I think Iriola is the most popular one, but if we went for him, there's a high chance, given the injury issues he's had at Bournemouth, the very attacking style. Don't think he's won a game in his last 5. I think you're going to see a repeated pattern of frustration. Just a younger coach who's done very well with the resources they have, but I don't think he's the answer. So I'd be looking at Kieran McKenna or Thomas Frank, and I would, purely based on his experience and I believe better in-game management, I would say Thomas Frank for me. Do I believe Thomas Frank is going to take Spurs to a Premier League title? No. As I said, I'm still in the camp of giving Postecoglou another year and finding a longer-term replacement after that when his contract ends, if it doesn't work out for Ange in that last year. Hopefully it does. But I think Thomas Frank is a guy who would, if he came in, provide a steady ship for Spurs. I think he would get them back into the top 6. I think he'd get them deep into cups. And I think he'd be the type of manager who, in an away derby, would come out grinding out the odd point and not always coming back with the tail between our legs in a defeat. So those are my answers. Up the Spurs, whoever the manager is, come start of next season, I'm all in on them. Yeah, come on you Spurs.
Hi guys, Ricky Sachs here from The Last One on Spurs. Hope you're enjoying this stress-free international break where at least we get a bit of a breakaway from the world and the life that is Tottenham day in, day out. And I think we can all safely say this has been so far a season to forget. I think the last time I recorded this segment with Miles and Ash, big up to you both at Spurs Kings TV, I expressed my real doubts under Ange Postecoglou, and in reality, what could we achieve under him, given the significant amount of injuries that we've had piling up, and my concern over him tactically, along in addition with, in my opinion, the lack of improving players that seemingly are out of form and haven't really progressed this season. I think the season has been encapsulated by a lot of the young players and what they've done, the likes of Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, Jed Spence. You could argue that apart from that, Dejan Kulusevski has been Tottenham's standout player of the season. And look, I think I said the last time we did this segment that I needed to see more from Ange Postecoglou to convince me that he's the right man for the football club. And the reality is that, as I record this video 2 or 3 months later, I'm now even further surer that Ange Postecoglou probably isn't the right man to take Tottenham forward. And it hurts by saying that because I think we all really, really, really wanted it to work. The reality is that we just haven't seen enough in these last 17, 18 months to give us the confidence that this is worth further time, further money in regards to investing in. And can Tottenham somehow save the season? And can Ange Postecoglou save his job by winning the Europa League? I don't think they can. I don't think he can. That's hard to say. It's upsetting to say because that's what Tottenham season has now come down to. It's come down to the Europa League or bust. But the reality is that when you're looking at the case, we've had 15 defeats across the Premier League season, 19 overall. It's staggering and crazy to think that Tottenham could have up to 30 defeats and win the Europa League. It just doesn't really make any kind of sense, but it could happen. I just don't think it personally will happen. I think there, in my opinion, is there decent teams in the Europa League that Tottenham are going to have to get past where in a one-off game, I fear tactically will be outdone. And I worry that the players really at this stage, despite showing up in the second leg of the AZ game to see us through, have not put enough consistent performances to give me the confidence that in a one-off game, should it be a final, we can get over that line. And we've seen it this season with regards to those big cup games. You know, a lot of people suggested wait until we make a change. You know, give Ange the cup games, Liverpool game, the Aston Villa game, and we went out both cups really with a whimper. I'm not saying anyone expects to get it past Liverpool, but I think the matter of the fact that we somehow in the first leg come out of a 1-0 and then the way we approach that second leg almost waiting to get beaten is a big concern. The Aston Villa game, we go down in the minute or so ahead of the game starting and you're thinking, how have we gone down in the opening minute? You know, tactically, there's just too much left wanting with regards to Ange Postecoglou, in my opinion. And I'm at a point now where, in reality, I said in these 17, 18 days, if Tottenham had any real ambition of winning the Europa League, we'd have to make a change. And look, doesn't look like we are going to make that change. So reality is, can Ange Postecoglou win Tottenham Europa League? Yes, he can. Will he win it? I don't think so. In terms of what needs to change and who would be the right man to take this club forward, look, I've said it so many times on Last Word on Spurs where I think we're at a point now where the job is almost... It's almost impossible to be successful at Tottenham anymore with regards to the restraints that are put on managers. What I do know is that the group of players that Ange Postecoglou has at his disposal, somebody will be getting more of that group and should be getting more of that group. You know, this group of players that we've got here, whatever you think about some of them, I think the core group of those players should not be languishing 15th in the Premier League. They shouldn't be. So let's see, obviously, how this season does play out. But obviously, at the moment, we're time of recording, there's a lot of links around the likes of Andon Iraola, Thomas Frank, Marco Silva. I think there's Hunes as well that's been mentioned. Obviously, the big one that I haven't yet mentioned is Mauricio Pochettino, that has once again reiterated his love for the club. And let's be honest about it, he's probably the last Spurs manager that we felt any kind of real genuine connection with as a fan base, and did make us dream that at times anything was possible. But does an admission of going back to Pochettino not only show a failure from the board in the first place to not back him, but also at the same time, does it also show that Pochettino would be willing to work under this ownership again that, with all due respect, failed him multiple times in the transfer market, and in a period of 518 days where they never spent a single penny on a player. So many say never go back, but I do feel there's unfinished business with Mauricio Pochettino. The reality is that nothing's going to change at this football club until the ownership changes. That's the reality. Nothing's going to change. So, look, I think we could appoint Iraola, appoint Thomas Frank. I just don't think we're going to be successful with those respective managers under this ownership. What I do know is that we are not a 15th place team based on our squad and our ability in it. And that is what I think needs to be addressed in the summer. I wish Ange Postecoglou all the very, very best. Like I've said with many, many, many Spurs managers, he's in a long line of a list that, in all due respect, never truly got backed, never got given the players he wanted to be successful. And therefore, that's, in my opinion, why I never ever tear into a Tottenham manager that, again, is at that 18-month cycle point where they're probably going to be at some point let go, because we've seen it so many times that these managers aren't given the tools to be successful. So in terms of what Tottenham need to do, there needs to be a change of ownership. I think I would be imploring everyone to go and support change for Spurs and what they're trying to do. And in addition to that, in terms of who that next man is, personally for me, I would love it to be Mauricio, but I don't see how he breaks that US contract, and therefore my eyes turn towards Andon Iraola, despite there being my concerns over, number one, how he would adapt to playing twice a week, given the amount of injuries that he's had in this season at Bournemouth. Can he cope with that? Can he deal with that? I think, again, it's a very much similar base of attacking football, high press, high energy. Does our squad have the ability to deal with that? I think, again, if you buy the right players for him, he could be a very good manager. But I just have very much reservations that any manager now under ENIC, it's impossible to succeed. So I think that's where I am, guys. That I think if we were to make a change during this international break and, dare I say, do something really spontaneous that many might not agree with, dare I say, an interim appointment that many might not fancy, the likes of a Rafa Benitez, which many might call insane and crazy, the guys who've got the ability in one-off games to win a cup. I think at the moment, you try anything. You would try anything to get anything out of this squad over the course of what will be 3 or 4 games that Tottenham simply have to win. I think you can draw a couple and win a couple. So we'll see. But thanks so much to Maron and Ash for having me on the show. And let's just keep strong, guys. I know it's a tough time out there. I'd implore you all, go and see me get a holiday away from it. Been a tough season. But like I say, guys, let's keep the faith. Let's see what happens. And like I say, love to the Spurs community out there. and let's just see if we can get behind the team between now and the end of the season. And if they win the Europa League, it'll be Tottenham's best season since '84, which I feel like I've aged 84 years this season, I'll be honest with you. So let's see. Thanks so much, guys, as always. Come on, you Spurs.
Hey, guys. It's JJ here from the Fulco. Since I was last on the show with Maron and Ash, my stance on Ange Postecoglou hasn't really changed. So we've had a victory against RZ in the second leg to take us through to the quarterfinals of the Europa League. And then we've had a disappointing 2-0 defeat to Fulham. So across those two games, still plenty of disappointment, obviously, in the defeat at Fulham. But there were enough signs against RZ that if we are able to put out our strongest team, that we can perform, we can do the things that Ange's system requires, and we can be successful, and we can score great goals, we can score lots of goals, and we can kind of take teams off the board. Obviously, across the two games, there's still the lingering issues at how bad we are defensively. So from my perspective, am I Ange in or Ange out? I see no reason to change the manager at this point in time. I think in the first instance, he deserves a chance with his players coming back. I know a lot of people don't agree with that position. They think he should have done a lot better with what he's had at his disposal. But for me, the injury situation that we've had and the overplaying, therefore, of everybody else has been so bad this season that he really does deserve to have a go at the Europa League with his squad coming back. So I wouldn't change the manager now. I don't particularly feel that changing the manager and bringing somebody else in is going to, significantly increase our chances of winning the Europa League, because even though in theory, there could be that new manager bounce that you get when you bring somebody else in. This is a team that isn't, it's a team that's not playing really well, but it's an inconsistent team as opposed to a team that's just been completely down in the dumps. And the players are still clearly behind the manager. So I just wonder whether changing the manager is going to be as successful as it would be at a club where the players are clearly down tools, or, it's just a club that's having a really hard time. Whereas this one, it feels like we're very inconsistent. The players are still behind the manager, and there's a hint of something there. People can see it. There's something that could happen. So I just feel that Ange deserves that chance to take it through to the Europa League final if he can. Do I think we can win the Europa League? I think we're certainly capable of it, and I think perhaps luckily for us, it's two-legged ties through to the final. So if these were one-off shootouts, no, I honestly think that, either Dr. Tottenham or typical Tottenham turn up and we're capable of losing any game, and, silly things or incredible situations arising in those games. We're now getting to the sharp end of the competition where we're going to be playing much better teams. So if they were one-legged, I would say no, I couldn't see it. Because they're two-legged, because we've got a chance, even though we're playing at home in both fixtures in the first game, I still think that we should have enough against any of the teams left in the competition to have a fighting chance. So can we win it? Yes, I think we can. Will we win it? This is Tottenham Hotspur. We've not won anything in so long. It's really hard to get behind it and say with any level of confidence that we will. So this is a blind faith one. It's a hope. Let's see what we can do. And as I said, there are signals that if we get our first team back and those players really do play to their potential, they can beat anyone that's left in the competition. And because I'm not Ange out at this moment in time, doesn't mean that I won't be by the end of the season. And for me, it's very much about seeing what can be done between now and the end of the season. And it's really, Ange has got to show, like in the Fulham game, he's got to show an ability, no matter what, whether it's rotating players, whatever team he puts out there, to get results and to produce performances to the end of the season across the Europa League and the league. And if he doesn't do that, then it'll be time to call it on this project potentially. But if he can do that, and if he can continue to show the signs that this really can work, we're going to need to back in with some incredible first team ready players, not just younger players and younger talent, which we can continue to load the squad with. But we really do need some first team ready individuals to come in to then elevate what we're doing within Ange's system, which is very, very demanding. So that for me is going to be the key, the recruitment if he stays. Let's see what we can do. And as always, come on Tottenham.
Hey, Marlon and all the beautiful crew at Spurs Kings TV. Jack and Dave here to give our answers to some of your questions, as well as a follow-up to the last video that we sent in to you guys. First question is where are you now with Ange? Since the last video, don't even really remember what I said, in the last video, but I recall that I probably had plenty of praise for him, maybe probably a lot of patience for him, for the most part. My thing is with Ange now, and plenty of people have heard me say this on the channel, where I'm getting very, very frustrated with him is I am not a big appreciator or backer of a guy that starts questioning the fan base and their mentality and starts having fights and scraps with people, in the crowd of a fan base. I just think once you start doing that, I think you have lost the plot. And I think you are also as well kind of opening a can of worms on yourself. And this idea of opening a can of worms on yourself, I think he's also been kind of doing with the media of recent as well, with kind of some of the sound bites and everything that he continues to give them. I want to try to let him see out the rest of the season personally. Like there's only so much left to even play for. I think you just give him the chance to let him play it out. But where I'm, with Ange, I'm just getting sick of him for the sort of scraps and maybe the sort of little bite backs that he's had with the fan base. Because for me, I just find that just to be completely out of line. But Dave, where are you now with Ange?
No, I agree with you on the scraps, with the fan base. And I think it's a case where he's not having the fan base and the fan base ain't having him. And I think it's just naturally coming to its end, its conclusion. Look, what I will say is we're definitely not playing the football that he's been known for. We're far from it. Scraps with the fan base, I'd argue, since we've had all of our players return, I don't think he's shown the best use of the squad rotation. And in hindsight, maybe looking back at through his injury period, the likes of your Jurgen Klopps and stuff have not been afraid to turn to the youth academy and, play players. And I think he has been. So, but on the hindsight, I think he has been let down by Tottenham in terms of transfers and stuff like that. But look, like I said, I think it's naturally coming to an end. I think the only way he's here next season if he wins the Europa League, which is a long shot. So that's the next question.
Yeah, like I said, I have a lot of patience for a guy, as long as they're not calling out the fan base. And that's been my biggest issue with him of recent. But can he win the Europa League? Technically, he can. He is still in it. I personally, right now, I don't think he will. My big worry is, and I think Dave has expressed this before, to some extent, that in European competitions, you're usually going to come up against some very tactically savvy managers who will be able to make changes either before the game or during the game. And Ange, I don't think has been able to do that or prove that. And also my worry is that when he was in the Champions League with Celtic, I don't think he really showed to, perform as well as I think he would have liked to. I think the likes of Shakhtar Donetsk were able to get good results against him. I remember RB Leipzig were getting good results against them. And at the time, those were not especially good teams. So I do worry about, his ability to get past some decent sides in the Europa League. But I'm going to let him see it out. Like I said earlier, I'm going to give him every chance to see if he can try to take us as far as he can in that Europa League. Dave, can he win it for you?
Look, I would say, and if we were playing the brand of football that he was revered for before he came to Tottenham, I'd say yes. But the fact that we're nowhere near that level, I don't think so. I just don't think, especially with the league form as well, that we can just turn it on for one game scenario. And you're right, guys, it's Europa League. Go out and be brilliant. Go out and be the best team in the world. Football just doesn't work like that. But come towards the end of the season, it is built on momentum. I go back to the Pochettino Champions League run. We got to the final, but we didn't get over the line because we didn't have the momentum carrying us in there. We didn't have the feel good factor. We almost felt lucky to be there. And I think if we get to the final, it could be the same case. So no, I don't think Postecoglou is going to win it.
And the third question is, would you basically, if he's out, who's your number one replacement to replace him next season? We can't get the Nagelsmanns, the Enriques, the Tuchels, all the slots, all those sort of, managers that we were linked with that one summer. They're all now in a job, or I don't think they would ever come to Spurs. So I think I have to be more realistic. I personally am starting to lean towards, and it's not sexy, but I am starting to lean towards Marco Silva, only because at Spurs, you're not really given a whole lot. You're usually forced to work with certain players that might be, let's say, not good enough to technically play for Tottenham Hotspur, or probably not players that even suit your system. And that's ended up hurting a lot of managers. You know, they didn't have guys that really suited their system, ended up sort of kind of bringing down the quality of the play and the quality of their tactics. And Marco Silva, to me, in his time in the Premier League and just in general, seems to be a guy that sort of looks at what he has available and then sort of seems to shape his style, his formation, and his tactics around that. And, you know, it's sad to say this, but I think that actually to a degree might suit Tottenham Hotspur. I don't want it to be that way. I think it should be the other way around. You should buy the players that suit their system and what they play. But it seems like Marco Silva is a guy that is able to adapt to what he has available to him, and is also shown to be good defensively, but is able to score enough goals. You know, he rejuvenated Raul Jimenez. You know, he brought Tim Ream, you know, back for like a season, you know, in the Premier League, and he's been able to work with what's available to him. And you look at that Fulham team, it wouldn't even take many of their players. I actually think there's a lot of pretty average, sort of, you know, almost Premier League rejects that he's had, you know, in that team, and he's been able to get a good tune out of them. So why can't he do that at Tottenham Hotspur? You're on mute there, Dave.
Maron, you can edit this part out. But I think when it comes to managers, Jack, I'm very hesitant to throw names out there anymore, to be brutally honest, because you look at the last 4 managers we've had since Poch. Have any of them really been able to instill their style and philosophy of play that they've been famed for everywhere else? So I honestly, I'm not really going to get hyped up. I think if the new manager comes in, I'll first season, sit back, see what he does. It's the second season where, you know, managers have trouble at Tottenham, and for me, that's where you judge them. But if I am going to throw one name out there who I actually think probably could end up getting the job, a scenario out there, I wouldn't put it past Postecoglou back to Celtic and Brendan Rodgers coming the other way. You know, you look at the job he done at Swansea. You know, you look at the job he done at Liverpool as well, to a degree, before Leicester got relegated. And that, look at the job he was doing there for a certain degree. And I just think Tottenham have been linked with him in the past, and I've looked at him in the past. So I know a lot of other people are going to give you sexy names like Iriola and all that. But honestly, I think it could be someone like a Brendan Rodgers. So let me know what your thoughts are on that, guys.
Brenda Rogers and Brenda Johnson, both in the same team. Let us know, Spurs Kings TV. Thank you guys, and you know, hopefully, you know, you can give good responses to our answers here. Appreciate you guys. Everybody subscribe to their lovely channel. Great guys. They've done a whole lot for us this season as well, especially Marlon with the channel predictions. We've asked a whole lot of them. So big up to you, Marlon. See you next time.
See y'all.
Yo, what's happening, everyone? It's Luke here from Spotlight on Spurs. Big shout out to the guys over at Spurs Kings TV for having me on to give my opinions on Ange Postecoglou. Now, this season, the results, the performances, they simply haven't been good enough. Everybody knows that. However, I would be sticking with Ange. I think that the issues that we're currently having at this football club run far deeper than the manager. We have had issues for years with injuries. It's always happened where players have gone down injured, they've got a niggle, and then all of a sudden they're out for months and months and months. This isn't something new. This isn't something that's just come around or just started to happen in Ange's reign. This has been going on for years. The medical department is absolutely shambolic. It always has been. And nothing's changed. So I think that there needs to be improvements made in that. There needs to be improvements made in all facets of this club. Let's be honest. I think every fan is in agreement with that. Under the current ownership model, things won't work. Our recruitment hasn't been good enough. It never has been. Again, you look back at all of the previous managers, from your Poches, your Contes, Mourinho's, and under Ange. The recruitment's not been good enough. We're signing players that either don't fit systems. We're signing players that simply aren't good enough. On the rare occasions where we've spent big money, they've not been brought in, and then they're not star players. They're players that are slightly better than what we have in some aspects. They're even worse than what we have. And we need to start looking at this recruitment. We need to start getting someone that can come in and actually can take control of that section. Paratici seems to be doing it to a decent standard. Obviously, we all know what happened with him. And then what's followed from there has been pretty poor. All of the signings made pretty much in the Ange's last 2 transfer windows have been young players. They've been 19-year-olds, spent big money, but they're all for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They're not for the heres and the nows. We didn't have enough experience in this squad. We're looking at youngsters at 18, 19 to lead this team because the big players, the experienced players, they haven't stepped up enough. They have on occasions, but they simply haven't done it enough. I think another reason that we should be looking at keeping him is because of the players. They seem to still back him. Normally, soon as the results start dropping off, players then start getting discontent, and they completely just stop playing for the manager. However, players have come out consistently over the last few weeks and backed Ange. You've got your Spencers, your Romeros, Kulusevskis, they're all coming out, Madison even, they're all coming out and saying that they back the manager. I know a lot of fans are saying that they kind of have to do that. They certainly wouldn't be allowed to go out and criticise, but they wouldn't come out of their own fruition in interviews saying that we back this man. So I don't believe in a lot of the narratives that are out there, and some of the narratives that are out there I don't think changes when Ange goes. I think a new man comes in, I think they'll have exactly the same issues. In terms of the Europa League, do I think we can win it? I certainly do. I think if we can get back to the levels that we've shown we can be, and we can get to, if we start putting in performances like the Cities and the Uniteds and the Villas this year, then it's definitely something we can do. Will it be tough? Of course it will. There's a lot of good teams in that competition this year. And our Europa League and our form in Europe has not been good, particularly away from home. We've lost to Mura with Conte. Mourinho got beat by a manager who was in prison, and I believe it's the first quarter-final we've made since that famous Champions League run. So we've been poor for quite a while, particularly away from home, and the second leg's being away from home, I think that's going to be decisive. Get the fans in on the home games. If we can take some leads into the bigger games that are away, then I definitely feel like it's a tournament we can win. Should we win it? I don't think we should win it. I think there is a number of teams in there that have a very good chance, but could we? For sure, I think we can. And then going into next year, as I said, I would still be backing Ange. I think that a lot of the options that are currently there at this moment in time, I think will bring with it certain negatives as well. I think that the adaptability, how much they change, how much they look at oppositions for Frank and for Marco Silva will mean that the fans start turning on them pretty quickly. I think that we, as a fan base, we want some good attacking football, and although they do provide it in spurts, I don't think it will be enough. In terms of Areola, I think he's a very good manager. He would be a good option. However, again, I think the football that he plays has a lot of similarities to Ange, and the stuff that Ange is currently being criticised for is a lot of similar and replica within the kind of football, the kind of injuries that Areola has. Areola hasn't had European football to deal with, and he's had big injuries. So if that was to happen when he's Spurs boss, I wonder whether fans would again be getting on his back, and then we just go through the whole cycle. In terms of having three players coming out and criticising the medical team as well, again, it's just everything at this club needs to change. We need to get so many players out the door. We need to get so many players in it. And I don't think whether we have Ange or we have anyone else, I think everyone, all of the challenges that we have next year, they will be exactly the same regardless of who the manager is. In terms of success, what Spurs fans consider success, under this ownership model, we will not have sustained success. We're not going to go and win trophies year after year. We're not going to go and win league titles. For me, it's about winning the odd cup here and there and being competitive as we can in as many competitions as we can. And I think we've got just as good a chance with Ange Postecoglou in charge at winning a trophy as we have any of the others that have been mentioned. And I'm talking about realistic here. I'm not talking about going and signing some of the best managers in the world, because we're currently not there as a club. So, yeah, in summary, I'd be keeping Ange Postecoglou. I can agree that there are certain areas that he needs to improve. There's no denying that. But I think that for the football that he can play, the fact that the players are still behind him, and we have been craving, really craving to get some good attacking football in, I think we should be keeping him. I know some of you won't agree with that, but that's football, that's opinions. One thing we can be sure is we all want Spurs to do well, so come on you Spurs.
What is happening, people? Thank you to Maron for this opportunity. So let's crack straight into it. Topic of conversation, obviously, Postecoglou. There'll be some real contrasting opinions even within this video, but we want what's best, of course, for our club. So first question, where am I at with Ange since the last video? I think the last video would have been fairly behind him. I think generally I've been quite patient with him, giving him the benefit of the doubt, because I think we've been through a lot. I think we've had a lot of injuries, a lot of general bad luck. But for me, recently, I've come to my end of the tether, and I've come really frustrated because the way I see it is every team, every manager is going to experience injuries. Yes, we probably experience more than others. I totally understand that, but I just felt like Ange should have adapted better and coped better. Look at Iriola with Bournemouth as a prime example. I just think you can't excuse, for me anyway, losing 15 Premier League games. And there's still Premier League games to go, isn't there? 19 in all competitions, losing 50% of all your Premier League games in all competitions, find yourself, 14th and a serious possibility of finishing lower than that. You can't defend that. And for me, he's Europa League or bust. So I'm at the end now with Postecoglou, but I don't see any reason to do it before the end of the season. And I think fans would suggest doing that. I've probably thinking about a new manager bounce maybe before Frankfurt, but I don't see it. End of the season, yes, I see nothing to say. Let's give Ange another season. I think that the summer will give us time to get that appointment right. Second question, can he win the Europa League? I think there's still a possibility that we can, even despite our awful domestic season, which is, as I said, quite embarrassing. And he does deserve that right, I think, to manage that Frankfurt game. He's kept us in the competition, and managers like Mourinho will turn around and go, look, I would have won that League Cup final, and Ange will say the same with the Europa League. So let's give them that chance to say, look, and Levy can go, look, I've been very, giving you the benefit of the doubt. And for me, with Ange, that's the reason I was so patient with him. I think the problems at the club are mainly higher up, but I just think that he should be doing so much better. And I think his stubbornness is a big issue, and I just think that he's not cut out for it. I think he's out of his depth, and I don't think he's right for the Premier League. I don't think he's right for Spurs. He just can't lash out either like he has been. So I don't think we will win the Europa League, but there's a possibility that we can. For me, I think we get past Frankfurt and we maybe become unstuck in Lazio. The only reason I say that is I'm thinking about away legs for us in Europe that I do worry about. Third question, if out, which at the moment I am at the end of the season, number one replacement to replace him next season. If in, what does it need to change? So good questions. Obviously, I'll answer the out one. I'm not fussed either way. It's kind of that feeling where I'm like, meh, either way, rather than, I really want him to work, and manager isn't the problem at Tottenham. We shouldn't be chopping and changing managers after 18 months. That's the belief that I've always had. But I think this is something, a different circumstance. I think we've got a manager that simply isn't up to the task, I'm afraid, isn't right. I do think the players still believe in him, though, so that's a big part. I wouldn't have a problem with us giving him extra time, giving him, starting next season. But money's been spent for him. There's no escaping that. So, kind of coming back to the question. I mean, Pochettino would be nice. I think that he's underappreciated what he done at Spurs. Gave me the best moments of my lifetime. But I'm not going to mention him, and I'm going to rule him out because he is contracted long-term with the US national team and hasn't even got going yet. So, properly. So there's no chance there. Absolutely zero, despite us fans probably wanted it. I've always rated Thomas Frank at Brentford. I think he is a real top manager. I don't know whether he would leave, though. Right now, for me, it would be Iriola of Bournemouth. And a lot of people go, yeah, but his win percentage is lower than Ange Postecoglou's. Yes, but his lose percentage is lower than Postecoglou's. That's what, Anginas, if you like, won't tell you. And I think Iriola with Bournemouth has adapted really well with injuries. I mean, they have recruited well, don't get me wrong, and they've replaced Solanke well. They're still massively overachieving. A prime example of that is Lewis Cook at right back. And he's just got so much out of this team playing beautiful football the way that it should be played. And yes, they've recent results have been poor for them, with players coming back as well, but they're still going to finish inside the top half. I still fancy them to get out to European places. But I'm a big fan of Fulham's Marco Silva. I think he's doing a fantastic job. I mentioned there, didn't I, Thomas Frank, so I'm quite open what it looks like. Again, Palace's Oliver Glasner, I don't think he'll leave. So there's managers out there. It's a when I say managers out there's a lot of good managers. It's just not available or may leave. That's the problem we've got. I don't think we should be looking down the Southgate or Ten Hag route. I think we should be looking at managers that are doing a good job with those lower-end clubs are really overachieving and deserve that next step up. So that's where I stand on it. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Always an honour to contribute. So big up to Maron and Willsy as well and his contribution for this video. Thank you once again. A massive comedy Spurs. I'd love to be proven wrong.
Happy people, Luke here from Park Lane Podcast. What are my thoughts on Ange Postecoglou at Spurs? Now, anyone that follows me on Twitter will know that I am still a fan of Ange Postecoglou. Look, the seasons haven't gone the way that you wanted. The injury list has been extensive. The excuses we can make as much as we want. But one of the main reasons why I'm still backing this manager is A, I still think there's a chance we could win the Europa League personally. But B, this man has won at every place he's been at, just like other managers have. If he can't do it, then who do we bring in? The issue that I have is that this is meant to be a project, right? This was meant to happen under Mauricio Pochettino. We then decided to change where we were going, look at the likes of Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte's, the buy-to-win managers. Obviously, that doesn't suit with our board, right? And so therefore, it was a silly appointment, was a stupid choice and the wrong thing to do. Now we have a project manager and we're buying project players like Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, Kinski, Odobert to some degree. We need to be able to back it and see it out. The point that I'm also trying to make is that by ending it now, we're achieving nothing when there is a chance we can do something with this manager. The other issue is, who do we go and get? Who do we go and then replace Ange Postecoglou with? We can sit there and say Iraola. We can sit there and say the manager at Fulham, Silva, but the likelihood is none of them will be able to do it either. Do we then call them out for their failure, in 6 to 18 months' time, because they haven't won anything with Spurs? Do we then cry back out for Mauricio Pochettino after the World Cup? Because let's be honest, he's everyone's ideal replacement for Ange. But he's not going to come until at least after the USA World Cup, in my opinion. So where do we go as Tottenham Hotspur? Do we instead see out this project with a project manager to at least the summer of 2026? We're not going to get relegated. We probably won't have Europe next year. So why not see it out, see this project through, and see if he can win us a trophy? Then we can go back to Mauricio Pochettino at the end of the World Cup when that's ended in 2026. That's my opinion on it. I'd like to hear everybody else's opinion. I get the frustration with Ange. I'm not, blind to it all, but I also think that there is more to come. And also, if you want a project, then you've got to see a project through. You can't talk about a project, you can't talk about a rebuild and then not want to see it through. Our board, our owners are not going to buy players to win something now. So if we need a project, then why don't we see it through? Anyway, catch you all later. Thanks again.
Big up Spurs fans near and far with your boy Deji Spurs. And we're talking about Ange Postecoglou. For me, he has to go. I've got nothing against Postecoglou. I think he's a nice man, and I think he represents what I believe to be a top manager. He's strong, he's firm, and he has his own philosophy, and I commend him for that. He's someone that maybe I would have run through a brick wall for, but in terms of his management of our club, he's not the guy. I think his system is better suited for leagues where there's 1 or 2 teams and then the rest are pretty dusty. Because in the Prem, his system it's just not effective. 15 defeats speaks for itself. The facts are, when you look at our performances have been poor. Just to remind you, Spurs fans, we drew in 90 minutes to Tamworth. We gave Crystal Palace their first win after 9 games. We gave Ipswich their first win after 12 or 13 games. As long we went to AZ, didn't register a proper shot on target. And, at home to Fulham, we were pretty dusty. Bournemouth, we're lucky to get a draw against Bournemouth. So there's been plenty of performances where we know that the boys haven't performed, and I just don't think the boys are playing for him. He calls it unacceptable. I call it the boys are not playing for him. So I don't think Postecoglou is the right man for the job. I think he needs to leave. I would love to be pleasantly surprised, but I can't see it happening. Now, that goes into the Europa League. Can Spurs win the Europa League under Postecoglou? The answer is no. I think the performances speak for themselves. If we're struggling to get it over the line against the dusty AZ team, we're not about to beat Frankfurt. And even if we were to get past Frankfurt, we're not beating Lazio with these dusty performances. So for me, I can't see how Spurs win the Europa League. I would love to be pleasantly surprised. As I said, I would take a Europa League all day long. But when you're drawing in 90 minutes to Tamworth, when you're struggling, when you're getting slapped up by Fulham, you can't beat a Bournemouth. We're not about to go and win the Europa League. I don't care. I would have had a different stance had we been playing well and losing. I believe the game at St James's Park against Newcastle, we did domination in the location, where we actually played well and we lost. Had our run of games been 15 defeats, but we've been playing well and losing, I could kind of say, you know what, the injuries is a factor. We're playing well, but without the players, it's not working. But the truth is, some of the players are back, and obviously they need time to come back. But our performances are poor. And so therefore, there's no chance in hell that Spurs win the Europa League. Now, for me, I called for Iriola or Marco Silva or Pochettino before Postecoglou got the job. My stance hasn't changed. I would say I was calling for more Marco Silva at the time than Iriola, if I'm being honest. But I will definitely go with Marco Silva, Poch or Iriola to come back in charge of Spurs. I think they've showed that with minimal resources, they can do a job. And therefore, I would like to see one of those managers at the helm. A lot of Spurs fans might say, why don't we go for the bigger managers, a Nagelsmann? But the truth is, even if you bring in a Nagelsmann, are we going to pay the money to bring in the players? Are we going to pay the wages or not? So we need a manager that can work with minimal resources. And Iriola has proved with that Bournemouth team that he can take players that were washed and make them something. And the same with Marco Silva. Once upon a time, Iwobi was a player that people was cussing. Now look at Iwobi. Look at Calvin Bassey. But Calvin Bassey waits Romero on the weekend. So these managers are good at bringing out the best, and that's what you want to see. It would be amazing to see what Iriola does with Solanke or Marco Silva, what they do with Adanzo, what they can do with Udogie, because Udogie ain't been the same since he got done out here by Minty Breath. Be interesting to see how they work with Jed Spence. Can they improve him? And then the Bergvall, the Archie Grays of this world, what could they do with these type of players? So that's who I would like to see at the helm for Spurs. Look, I want us to do something this season. I would like to be wrong. I just can't see it happening. Come on, you Spurs.
Hello, Marlon, and everyone watching. Thank you very much for this invitation once again. It's a pleasure for me. Let's address question number one. Where are you now with Ange since the last video? So the last video, more or less mid-November. The next game we beat Man City 4-0. Then we've had pretty bad injury crisis, although a few started before. Very bad injury crisis that some don't give credit to and call excuses or whatever. So let's analyse a bit. Yeah, three main players that have been out the most: Vicario, Romero, and Van de Ven. We could also include Dragushin, who came in to substitute either centre back, out as well. Maddison, who's important in the midfield. Bentancur as well. So let's address this. The last 28 games since we last spoke, we've won 9, drawn 4, and lost 11 without Vicario. We've won 9, drawn 4, and lost 10 without Romero. And we've won 7, drawn 4, and lost 10 without Van de Ven. Dragushin has been away for the last 10 matches, winning 4, drawing 1, and losing 5. That's the team. Bentancur has been away for 12 games this season through suspension, yellow cards, and 3 matches that he was out with a concussion or something similar. Of the 12, winning 5, drawing 1, losing 6. Maddison was out 5 games. We can include Maddison in an important player in the midfield. Away for 5, 1-2, lost 3. And if you want to go to a doggy, when he was out, 1-5, drawn none, lost 6. Those 11 games. Out of all the losses we've had, which have been 19, unacceptable. Yeah, let's just get that out of the way, unacceptable. But we have to contextualise it. 19 losses, of which 16 have only been by 1 goal. The 3 remaining were Liverpool 3-6 and Fulham 2-0 in the Prem. And then in the EFL, Liverpool 4-0. The rest have all been won by 1 goal. So there must be something there to take from that. We're not getting hammered week in, week out. I put it down to, obviously, the injury crisis, the knock-on effect that has on the rest of the players, getting sufficient rest or not getting sufficient rest, playing players possibly out of position. Spencer's done a great job at left-back. Gray switching between midfield, central defence, right back. We've got a new keeper in that Kinski didn't do a bad job, pretty decent. 1 or 2 or 3 mistakes here and there, but he's young. So we've got to take into consideration Solanke's already been out. Richarlison has been out. Odebear has been out. So, I'm Ange, and I think it's just a very bad season on the whole. The next question would be, if Ange stays, what needs to change? I think consistency, the fact that we have all our players together to gel, to reach that consistency and to correct any errors, whether tactically, technically. I've seen a lot of passes by elite players that haven't gone even 20 yards to their teammate. Little mistakes, these lack of concentration that cost you. Those things have to be addressed. And then if I'm not Ange, what needs to? Who would I change? Who would I bring in? I don't contemplate that yet, because there's so many names being thrown about. Last week it was Iraola and Frank. This week it's whoever it is. Poch is coming back apparently, so everybody jumps on the bandwagon, and it's just to appease the emotion, and it's just to appease the that moment in time. So yeah, definitely Ange. Those things need to be corrected. And I put it all down to a massive, massive injury crisis that we've had, and details. And the proof is in the pudding, the details. A lot of people are stat driven with no context whatsoever. So the stats are there. 16 losses by 1 goal, 3 by 2 or more. Thanks for the opportunity once again. I hope this has been of use to somebody at least, and always available. So thank you very much, and take care. Come on, Spurs.
Hang on, boys. So I just watched back the video I sent for the previous Ange video, and I felt so sorry for myself because I was so optimistic, and we were going for a bit of a rough spot, but I think a lot of us thought that we could bounce back, especially with the injuries and players coming back and stuff like that. Oh, my days, have the wheels fallen off. I've lost all hope, I think. Every single game, I'm so pessimistic. I have no hope that we're going to get a result. Even that's when we're at home. Even that's when we're going at AZ Alkmaar. And like, with all due respect, we should be smashing them even away from home. And we whimper away after a loss. And okay, we're in the quarters of a European Cup. That's amazing. But every single game, we're seeing the same fragilities, the same vulnerabilities. And I just think with Ange Postecoglou, it kind of worries me that he's had 26 years of managerial experience, because if we had a young manager and we were sort of growing with him with a young squad, I'd think, okay, he's going to learn from these. He's going to adapt. He's going to tweak things. And whenever he has tweaked things, they only last for one match, and we go back to the same vulnerabilities, same fragilities, and we never seem to learn from our mistakes, and that means that we're not going to see any progression at all. And I actually think we are regressing significantly, and we're falling like a stone down the table. And I just don't see it getting better. I really don't. When it comes to the injury record, I think Postecoglou has to have some sort of responsibility for that as well. I know a lot of them are things that you can't really do anything about, but I think the injury records with the muscle injuries is down to the system. I do think that. I might be wrong, but that's just what I believe. And I think in the transfer window, he's identifying the wrong profiles. We've got too many similarities, too many similar profiles of players, and the balance isn't there. And actually, the demand for the type of profile he needs, say for the six and say for the wingers, his midfielders, they're so rare and they're so hard to find, and you'll have to go out and buy the 80 mil plus players for those positions, and I just don't see us doing it. So I'm not confident at all. I'm really disappointed how the season's gone, how this project's gone, because there was so much hope, especially going into this season, that we could do something important. But we are in the Europa League, which is interesting because we should be winning it. Like, if you look at the other teams, I know we have got some it's still quite competitive, but I can't see us getting past Frankfurt. And I know that's like really miserable and not it's a bit defeatist, I think. I don't really want to have this attitude, but I don't believe we'll go into a game sure of winning, and we haven't this whole season. Frankfurt away, last leg, is a worry. However, if we get past them, I feel like we could beat Lazio. Then we're in the final, and hopefully it's not Bilbao, but maybe it's Man United or something, I don't know. But we could win that. We should win that on paper, but I don't think we will. I think we'll go to Frankfurt and I think we'll whimper out, because that's sort of mentality we've been carrying this season under Postecoglou. And I think the players, I do think the players are fighting for him, but I just don't think they've got enough left in the tank to give for him. So I think that'll be it. And then whether we sack him after we're knocked out is yet to be seen. But I mean, if we do win the Europa League, that would be. I mean, obviously it'd be amazing, but it'd be really interesting to see what happens with him, because I can't see anything progressing under him. But if we win the trophy, he's our most successful manager ever. And actually, what's sad is that if he doesn't win a trophy, he's probably one of our worst ever managers statistically. If he does win a trophy, he's probably our best manager ever on paper, but obviously not ever, but in recent history. But onto his replacements, if he does go, which I do think it feels terminal now. I do think he'll go. Pochettino, I don't think he's going to take the job because he's going to lead USA to the World Cup. But a part of me doesn't want to ruin. I don't think it would work. I don't think we should be going back. I think there's a lot of romanticism around that, but I don't think we should be going back to him. Then there's like there's managers that are sort of obvious in your face that don't fill me with too much hope, but I wouldn't be shocked if we do it, and I'd get behind them. And that's Thomas Frank, Iraola. I'm not really sure about Marco Silva. And then there's a couple of maybe like hipster choices like Farioli from Ajax and Hunes. Is it Hunes from Stuttgart? But I don't know. There's not an obvious candidate, I don't think. Probably it would be a Frank or an Iraola, but I don't think there's an obvious candidate staring us in the face. You could maybe take a punt on Xavi, but I don't know. The only thing about Frank and the managers like that is I don't think they have that much like aura, that sort of winning sort of. They don't ooze confidence, I don't think. And I do think we kind of need that presence. But a young manager, preferably, that we can grow with these young players. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really, really difficult to find that perfect managerial option. I don't even know if I've got any energy for another managerial hunt, to be honest. But yeah, thanks, lads.
Where am I on Ange Postecoglou? Yeah, I'm very much Ange out now. Have been for a while. Results are not good enough. 14th, whatever it is, in the Premier League is unacceptable. Level on points with 16th. 19 defeats in all competitions. It's not good enough. He's had a commendable journey through his career from Australia into Japan into Scotland, but I think his inexperience at this level, though the toughest league in the world, is showing. And Tottenham Hotspur can't be 14th in the Premier League. And I know he's had injuries. I believe the injuries are somewhat down to his style. And yes, the players are coming back, but we're still managing these minutes. And I know why, because it's all eggs in one basket, but we shouldn't have all eggs in one basket. We should still be pushing for Europe in the league, and we're not. Ultimately, unfortunately for the guy, I think he's just out of his depth at this level. He might go on and do well somewhere else, but it won't be in the Premier League, and I don't think it will be with Tottenham Hotspur. Can we win the Europa League? Yeah. I mean, yes, of course. I think when you're in a quarter-final, any team can go on and win a cup within reason. Look, we don't have to win every game to win this thing. We could draw all of our games and lift the trophy. Not that we draw many games anyway. We could lose a couple, win a couple, and still get through. I don't think we get past Eintracht. So no, I don't think we will win the Europa League. And I've got to tell you, even if we do, I don't think he should keep his job. I think he would keep his job, and I think I can understand why. Very difficult to sack a manager after he's won a major tournament. It would be an amazing thing for Tottenham to win the Europa League. But for me, the league position is unacceptable. It's a bit like Ten Hag. Man United won the FA Cup, kept him, probably shouldn't have kept him. Look, I don't think we're going to, so I don't think that's going to become an issue. Who would I want to replace Ange if he was sacked? It's the normal names being bandied about: McKenna, Frank, Iraola. I really like Iraola. I know he's had similar problems at Bournemouth with injuries, which is a little bit of a concern, but they still went to Newcastle and won 4-1 when they had no players. They had 11 first-team players, a bench full of kids who'd never played in the Premier League. I don't think Tottenham under Ange would be going anywhere and winning 4-1 if we had 11 fit first-team players. And I also think that Iraola has 500-odd appearances for Bilbao as a player. That stays in his mind. He's got experience at the top level as a player. 2 good years, or maybe 18 good months at Bournemouth. To have Bournemouth pushing for Europe is fantastic, and I just think it's a really good manager in there. It might not work, but at the moment, I think Iraola, there are names bandied about from outside of the Premier League. I think Premier League experience is vital. And I think he would be someone I could really get behind. Gives me Poch vibes. And people want Poch, not for me. But I think Iraola gives me a bit of that in the way that he manages.
Here's my answers. Where am I now with Ange? For me, the end is nigh. I don't think we can get rid of him before the end of the season, whatever happens. Because I, like all Spurs fans, and I think probably Daniel Levy, don't want to have another situation where we've got to have a Ryan Mason in charge or even a Matt Wells. So we've just got to stick with it for the season. Can we win the Europa League? It's going to be tough. Frankfurt will not be easy. Saw Akite, is that his name? Scored a hat-trick for the France under-21s against England under-21s last night. He's a good player. He's on fire. And it's going to be a really tough game against Eintracht Frankfurt. We really need to be picking out our A game. And then, obviously, we can have with Lazio. And I think Bilbao must be favourites. In their home stadium, we know how tough they've been over the years at home. Anyway, and the fact the finals on their patch just gives them a huge advantage. So, can we win it? Yes. Are we going to win it? Very small chance, in my opinion. I'd love to be wrong. And then who would I have like next year? I think Iraola has been my favourite for a while. I've been really impressed by what he's done on a small budget. Obviously, you know, a bit like Nuno's at Forest this season, haven't had European football. You've only had those games, weekend games. So you get a different perception, you know, once you get to Europe. Forest are clearly going to be in Europe next season, and there's a chance Bournemouth will be. You'll get a different perception of how they cope when the squad is more stretched. I mean, I'm going to add a fourth question here, Marlon, sorry. But Could Ange be successful long term? I think if he was given 5 years at the club, he probably could. But we all know that's not going to happen because us fans won't stick with it. And I think that's probably right. You know, we've had so many years. We went really high with Poch, and then obviously we had Jose, Nuno, and Conte. We were highs and lows with all of them. But ultimately, I think it's going to have to be a change in the summer for me, unfortunately. And I really like Ange, but it's just not happening for him at Spurs, unfortunately.
Good afternoon, guys. Hope you're well. My name is Willsy, best known for doing donuts on social media, or more simply for editing this video that Maron and Ash have kindly asked me to be involved in again. So thank you, guys. And my goal today is to answer 3 questions that Maron has put out on the WhatsApp group for me. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first question is, where are you at with Ange now? Well, if I recall back to my last video we did for this channel back in November, I was pretty dumbfounded by the results. We lost 2-1 to Ipswich, and then straight after the video got posted, we then beat City 4-0. So that just solidifies how inconsistent Spurs are and how inconsistent we currently are, and that situation currently hasn't changed. So if I'm honest, I'm not really happy with the current string of results that Ange has performed on the pitch with our players, but I'm Angin until we inevitably get knocked out of the Europa League, because he promised that he always wins a trophy in his second season. So that goes on to the next question very nicely. Will he win the Europa League? And my honest answer to that is no. I don't think he will win the Europa League, purely because I feel like there are better tactically minded teams in that competition that can easily outclass Spurs. One team is Lazio. I think they're a much better gelled team than Spurs are, and I just don't think we have the firepower to go through to the final and win the trophy. So if I'm honest, I don't think we will win it, but we can if Ange gets his tactics right, all of our players are fit, and things go well. But that's my answer to that. And the last question is, if I'm Ange out, what's the number 1 replacement? And if I'm in, what does he need to change? Well, if I'm Ange out, I'd say we bring in Mauricio Pochettino again. I know I've seen a lot of the fan base saying that they want him back, they don't want him back, but I still think that he has unfinished business at Spurs, but I'm not sure that will happen under the current ownership, seeing how Levy treated the situation last time. And if there's any other managers, I see a lot of people saying Andoni Iraola. I feel like if we bring in a mid-table manager again, just like we did with Nuno, things will go well for the first few months, and then the wheels will eventually fall off. That's clear to see. When we did have Nuno, he came to Spurs, got sacked by October, November, and then he went to Nottingham Forest, and now they're pushing for Champions League qualifications. So I feel like that will be a lot the same if Andoni Iraola comes to Spurs. And if I'm Ange in, what needs to change? His tactics, for one. The simple-minded tactics that he keeps bringing out the same tactics every single match, week in, week out. If it doesn't work, who cares? Let's just run with it. And I think we need to change our sporting director, which currently is Johan Lange. I don't think he is. I think he's as accountable for the signings as Levy is, because unlike Lange, Levy is bringing in the money, but I don't think Lange is making the right decisions behind the scenes. So that's my opinion on that. And another thing is that we need to hire new first team coaches, like a new set piece coach that will fully strengthen our set pieces, because everyone knows that we don't know how to defend corners for the life of us. So those are my opinions, guys. Massive big ups to Spurs Kings TV for allowing me to be involved and to edit the video again. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of the video. Take care, and I'll see you very soon.
What's going on, guys? Sunny Talk Spurs here, and you want to know my opinion to these very important questions. And the first one is about Ange Postecoglou. What do I think of him compared to the last video? Well, I think I've flip-flopped massively. I was a massive fan of Ange Postecoglou. I loved Ange Postecoglou, but ever since the Everton game, my opinion's been fixed. I'm not sure he is the man to take us any further. I know he's had his issues with injury. I know we've had our issues in general this season, but sitting 14th in the Premier League with this squad, even with the injuries, is not good enough. It's not good enough. And we're going to talk about the other problems, like what needs to change at Tottenham towards the end of this, but it's just not good. It's terrible. We are just like limping out of games, embarrassing, conceding so many goals, and also the attacking football's dried up. It's not Ange ball anymore. It's flat. It is flat as a pancake. So to put it into perspective, I think he's on borrowed time. I think he gets sacked in the summer. And I think that makes sense. And that goes on to the next question, which is, can Tottenham win the Europa League? I don't think we can, because Ange Postecoglou's philosophy and attacking football is not good enough in knockout tournaments. You want a manager who is going to be able to soak up pressure in early stages and be able to, attack teams when is appropriate. Lots of top managers and elite managers in world football now are adaptable. They play different styles for different games. Ange goes out and does the same thing every week, and we get found out week in, week out. So I don't think we're going to win the Europa League, because I think Eintracht Frankfurt are too strong. And as soon as we get knocked out to them, Ange will be sacked, or he'll just wait till the summer. My number one candidate to replace him. Now, and you have to check this out on my own channel, I've done like a tier list rating and ranking the next Spurs managers. Start between Iraola and Thomas Frank, but I think Iraola just edges it because he plays a similar style, but I think it's better defensively. The pressing's better. It just makes more sense. And Iraola has now got a track record of improving players. So I am all for Iraola. I think he would be a really good replacement, and he would take this Spurs team onto the next level, especially as I think he is going to be a super coach in the future. But what needs to change? Daniel Levy needs to go. Daniel Levy needs to leave this football club. He's an absolute terrible chairman in regards to footballing. He's great for business, but he's just not going to move this team on in the right direction. Look at Newcastle and how much they've improved. So, yeah, a lot's got to change, starting with Ange and eventually ending with Daniel Levy.
Hey guys, it's Holly. Thank you for asking me to answer a few of these questions for you guys on Spurs King TV. The first one being where my head is at with Ange. To be honest with you, I think he's very much holding on by the skin of his teeth, to be perfectly honest. Obviously, for me, the fact that we're still in the Europa League is a big bonus, and probably the only reason he still has a job at Tottenham. I'm not stupid to the idea, though. I don't think it's going to work out long term, as much as I really wanted it to. I think if we do, by some miracle, win the Europa League, we let him go. I say let him go. We sack him and say, cheers, thank you very much for bringing us a trophy. I don't think it's going to work any further. Obviously, that kind of leads on to the second question you asked me is, can we win the Europa League? We've got to be in it to win it. As cliche as that sounds, do I think we've got the ability to do so with the way Ange plays his tactics? The only thing I'm kind of holding on to is the fact that these players seem to turn up when it matters in these games, in these knockout games, and any footballer wants to win a trophy. Well, I hope so anyway, even with how poor our mentality is at winning things. But the players know how much a trophy means to us. I think it would be incredible if we go and do that, but I do honestly think it's a miracle, to be honest with you. And that being said, obviously I said even if he wins Europa League, he needs to go. Who do I think comes in and replaces him? I think it will just be rinse and repeat regardless of who we get in. Obviously the one person on everybody's lips at the moment is Pochettino, and I'm probably in the minority of saying that I don't particularly want him back, and call me stupid, but that's probably because the man is still tied in with a big contract with America, and I don't really like the idea that he's flirting with the fact of potentially wanting to come back. It just gives me a bit of a red flag. But who do I want to come back in right now? I have no idea. Probably the biggest person would probably be Iraola from Bournemouth, purely because of how well he's done at that club at the moment. But I think he comes into Spurs, it's a totally different ball game, and I think we all know the bigger problem at this club is Daniel Levy and co, and I don't think anything's going to change while they're still there. And yeah, I think what terms needs to change at the club for someone to succeed. The ideal scenario, them going, but we all kind of know that's not going to be the case. I think the only thing it can change with him still being at the football club is to literally move him right aside from Tottenham itself, in terms of just take him straight out of the equation and let football people run the football club. And my biggest thing is as well, we all talk about obviously getting him gone. My kind of biggest change is actually just having a bit more of identity that it's Tottenham Hotspur, whether that be having names on the seats, whether that means having a statue outside of the stadium. I mean, I don't know what that would be of currently, because there's not really a lot to talk about. But yeah, it's so toxic at Tottenham at the moment. You can probably tell by my voice, I'm just a bit deflated by it all and can't be bothered. So that's kind of my kind of take on it. Thanks again for asking me. Hopefully things do get better and we do win the Europa, and we'll have something to smile about soon.
Hello there everyone at Spurs Kings TV, and a big shout out to Ashmatic and Maron, who have asked me to answer 3 questions in regards to Ange Postecoglou and the state that we're in. So question 1 was, where am I with Ange now? I am Ange out. I stayed as Ange in because I'd never turned my back on a manager before, and I didn't want to do it at all. And after losing the North London derby, I became Ange out. That game means more to me, or means more to us than anything, and the least we ask is passion, desire, commitment and fight for the badge, and there was just none of it there. And then someone said to me before I went on We Are Tottenham TV that Ipswich have now had less defeats than us, and that's what triggered it. But I think I would have turned after Leicester and Everton anyway. So I am now Ange out, the first manager I've ever turned on. My number 1 target, should Ange Postecoglou, or when Ange Postecoglou is gone, I would want the man that I wanted before Ange Postecoglou came in, Thomas Frank. I think he is wildly underrated. I think he is a very clever manager. I think he adapts during games. The Brentford players and fans seem to love him. I think he handles himself in the media as well. Remember, he's had to deal with losing big players as well, like David Raya and Ivan Toney. He just adapts, moves on, and it's the club that support him to help him get where he needs. And I just think he's a wildly underrated manager, and I think he could be very, very good at Tottenham. We've got to remember now with Tottenham, we've got our next manager. It's not even about getting into the top 4 again. It's about going back into the top half and trying to get into Europe and then build from there. And I think Thomas Frank could do a great job for us, so he would be my number 1 choice. And the final one is, if he stays, if Ange Postecoglou stays, what does he need to succeed? I don't even think he can succeed. But if he was, and we had to answer this, he'd need to change his ways. He'd need to be more versatile. Need to adapt better. Training regiments change, because we can tell that that's an issue. And he would need proper footballing people in there to bring in the exact players he wants in, because he will be failed like every other manager under the current ownership. So I don't see that happening. He shouldn't be staying. Let's hope question 3 doesn't become going into this next season with Ange Postecoglou in charge. But anyway, thanks for the opportunity and asking me to record a video, Marlon and Ashmatic. Hope everybody in the chat is good. Have a great day. And as always, Levy out.
Hi everyone, this is Jim from Kate and Jimbo, The Perfect Match. Doing a video for Ashmatic and Marlon. Don't forget to like and subscribe to these guys. Fantastic guys, really are. The first question is, where are you now with Ange since the last video? Well, the last video my wife done, but I'll give you my opinion. Where I am with Ange, I think he's a good manager, Ange, in his own right. I think that he's a little bit out of his depth in the Premier League. I don't think it makes him a bad manager. I think that every manager's got a level. and I think that the Premiership is one step too far for Ange. I think if he leaves Tottenham and he goes back to a lower level, I think he'll start winning stuff again. The Premier League is a different animal to any other league. And he's won in Scotland, he's won in China, he's won in Australia. He's won with the national team in Australia, which is some feat, the Asian Cup. And I do think he's a good manager. But I think he's beginning to tell now that he's out of his depth. He doesn't adjust enough. I think his choice of teams sometimes is really suspect. I think that like the last game against Fulham, he rested players, but the next game wasn't for 18 days. It didn't make sense to me. I just think that it's too much for him in the Premier League. But I'm not saying that makes him a bad manager. I'm just saying that every manager's got a level, and I think this is one step too far for Ange. I think he needs to go back to the level he was at. I mean, look at Lampard. Never was going to make it in the Premier League. He's gone to Coventry and he's doing really well. I mean, that is just some managers that you have to be a special type of manager to make it in the Premier League and do well in the Premier League, you know. So that's my opinion on Ange. The next question is, can he win the Europa League? Yes, he can, for sure. Right, but everything's gonna have to fall into place. He's gonna have to pick the right team against the right opposition. He needs to be able to adapt a bit to their style of play, which I think he struggles with massively. You can't be at this level, right, at the Premier League level, at the European level, one dimension, one tunneled vision. You can't be. You have to adapt. If you watch people like let's say Eddie Howe, I mean, look how he adapted his team and how he set them out against Liverpool. They were fantastic. I mean, to me, that's the top coach that can do that. So, yes, he can win it. Of course, he can win it. We're in the quarterfinals, so it can be what he can win it. Will he win it? If I was a betting man, I would probably say no. But because I'm a massive Spurs fan and I love this club so much, I'm going to back him to win it and say, yes, we will win it. But it's going to be hard and he's going to have to change a few things and definitely not rest players against teams like Frankfurt. I mean, otherwise we will get beat. So, yes, he can win the Europa League. And the third and final question, if he is sacked, my number one replacement to replace him next season, right? And if he's in and doesn't get sacked, what needs to change at the club for him to succeed? I think my number one would be Areola. I would really like to see him at the club. I think he's done wonders at Bournemouth. So I would really like to see him at the club. He seems like a manager. He seems like a manager that knows how to set his team up. He looks like a man manager as well to me. I think he would do well. I'd like to see Poch back. A lot of people don't want him back and think you shouldn't go back, but I think Poch is a man manager that would really get a lot out of these players as well. But I don't think he'll be back. Disappointment. I think he will be back, but I think it'll be after the next appointment. And if he's in, what needs to change? Oh my God, where do we start? He needs to adapt, obviously. His game plans, you know, you can't be tunneled vision. I just said that you can't be in the Premier League. Every team you play against is different, you know. So you need to adapt to their style of play, which I think Ange really struggles with. So I think that he would benefit from maybe having a second that can advise him that he'd listen to, which is, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But my opinion, I don't think he will be here. next season. I think he might last the end of the season.
Hi Marlon, Nash from Spurs Kings TV. Big up guys. It's Nige from Pure Coys. In answer to your question, I haven't changed my stance on Ange. I would still like him to leave the club. Listen, he might be the loveliest guy in the world. I just don't think he is up to it. Tactically, he's inept. And for me, he's not the man to take us forward. Doesn't fill me with confidence when I watch Spurs with him in charge. Nothing against him personally. As far as can we win the Europa League? Well, I'm guessing as we're still in it, yes. Realistically, I don't think we can. I think if we got past Frankfurt, that would be great. I can't see us getting any further. I think it's a really difficult run to actually go on and win it. So I would say no, though I hope we do. And as for manager coming in, as I want Ange gone, for me, I've stayed steadfast in the fact that I would love Terzic in at Spurs. A lot of people I hear say he's defensive. I don't see that at all. I don't think he's a defensive manager. I think he just adapts to situations and changes his teams accordingly. That's the kind of man I want in charge. Also, he's young. He will bring through young players. For me, Terzic is the man, though right now, I take anyone. Have a great day, guys. Much love, and come on, you Spurs.
Hey, how you doing? Hope you're well. Hope everyone's looking forward to the break away from Spurs for a couple of weeks. The sun's out here in London. If it's sunny where you are, enjoy the weather. It's not often we get good weather. Marlon from Spurs Kings TV has asked myself and every other YouTuber to do all the work for him because he doesn't make videos for himself. We've got to make it for him. That's nice. But nonetheless, I'm happy to help. Marlon wants us to let him know what we think about Ange, what we think about a potential new manager, and what we think about our chances in the Europa Cup. For me, I am not a fan of Ange. I don't rate him as a manager. I think he's very much one-dimensional. And I also feel that as a coach that develops players, he's really proven to be a big disappointment. I feel a lot of our players have stagnated or regressed. And that is under his leadership, under his coaching and the coaching team that he's put together. I also feel that the way he sets us up, I just don't like it. I don't like the fact that our fullbacks invert instead of overlapping. I don't like the fact that the area outside our opposition's box is always congested, which means that our number 10 can't really operate and create because it's too much traffic in that space. Partly because we invert our fullbacks and we push the midfield into that space as well. I'm not happy we don't play with a proper 6. We're desperate for a Wanyama, a Scotty Parker type player to sit and hold. We don't really do that. And it's just unfair on our centre-backs to always be left stranded on their own, having to shift left, shift right and cover all the space when the attacks are sprung on us. And it just doesn't work for me, guys. I've given it a chance. I let it play out, but it's just shambolic. I know some might disagree, and you're allowed to disagree, but my opinion is it's pretty piss poor. And like I said, I don't think he's developed our players. They haven't really progressed. In terms of a new manager, I would like Iraola. And the reason I'd like Iraola, not because it's trending or because it's popular. I mentioned Iraola many months ago on my channel. It's for a number of reasons. Number one, he plays a 4-3-3, which is similar to Spurs, so the transition isn't too complicated. He also pivots to a 4-2-3-1, which I think actually would work quite nicely for Spurs. The fullbacks overlap, which would work to the advantage of Spence, Porro and Udogie, because they were good at overlapping fullbacks when they were at Udinese, Sporting Lisbon and Nottingham Forest. So I think he'll get the best out of our fullbacks, wingbacks, whatever you want to call them. He doesn't leave the back two so exposed the way Ange does. And I think he's far more creative in the final third with Bournemouth than what he is, than what Ange is with Spurs. Also, Dominic Solanke is now a Spurs player. And Dominic Solanke's best ever season was playing for Bournemouth under Iraola. I think Iraola can get the best out of Solanke because he's the only manager that got the best out of him in the past. And I think he would play to suit the strengths of Solanke. Also, I am more impressed with Iraola's work with the young players at Bournemouth than with the young players that Ange has worked with at Spurs. I also like the fact that he's developed players that were somewhat unknown, the Christies, the Cooks, Kirkes from AC Milan. And I think Iraola will develop and work with our players far better. Do I think Iraola is the complete package? Is he the solution to all our problems? No, because as long as Daniel Levy and Enoch are here, we're always going to be in trouble. But Iraola definitely gets a better tune out of the current crop we've got. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think he'd be a much far better suit for the young players that we've got. We've got a very young squad now at Spurs as well. So Ange out, Iraola in. And regarding the Europa Cup, I'm sure you know what I'm going to say. We're not going to win the Europa Cup, people. I know fans were getting carried away in the summer. We're going to get top four. We're going to win trophies. And Matthias Tell, people making videos in January. Matthias Tell fixes the Spurs attack. And in the summer, we saw videos of Archie Gray's generational guys. It was crazy. All these videos are bonkers. There's no substance to back it up. It's just overhype and getting carried away just to kind of, I guess, please you. We need some honest, grounded conversation, and our squad is not ready to be winning trophies, I don't think, under Ange. And I don't believe that we had the squad in the summer to navigate the difficult terrain if we got injuries and if we got suspensions. And by the way, this isn't hindsight, this is foresight. If you go on We Are Tottenham TV, there's a clip of me in June where I said all this would happen and it would all unravel. So I did foresee this and I never got carried away or caught up with it. So I don't believe we'll win the Europa Cup. I think we'll play that one team that's just tactically better, better drilled, and the pressure will get to us, and tactically the opposing manager will navigate that game, play the game of chess better than what Ange does, and move the pieces accordingly in the key moments of the game and outdo us. And sadly, we'll come unstuck. I'd love us to win the Europa Cup. It would be phenomenal. And you know what? If we won the Europa Cup, I would be Ange in. Absolutely, I'd be Ange in, because he would have done something no manager's done in 40 years, and that's win a European trophy at Spurs. But we're not going to win the Europa Cup. We're not. I just find it very difficult to see Spurs winning any trophies under Ange Postecoglou. So anyway, they're my views, they're my opinions. Feel free to agree, disagree, and if you want to debate or discuss these topics, feel free to come on Tottenham Away anytime you wish. Everyone's welcome, and we can discuss. Otherwise, Marlon, I've done the work for you. Enjoy. It's sunny. Everyone, go out, have a drink, enjoy yourselves. Take care.
Hello everyone at Spurs Kings TV. I'm Lee the Dorset Spur, and I've been invited to come along and give my opinions on Ange Postecoglou. Where do I sit with him? Where do I think we're going? Will we win the Europa League? Will we replace Ange Postecoglou? And if so, who would I like to see? So I guess the first thing I guess to really go on is that, as I said previously, this is been probably one of the most difficult seasons that any Spurs team has had to go through. When Ange came in, we had this massive task required of changing this squad, rebuilding and changing the direction that we were going in. He needed to bring the fans together. He needed to bring the board together. He needed to bring the players together to start to do something special. A proper rebuild, a difficult rebuild. For me personally, I think there have been some good things. The emergence of Bergvall and Gray, Jed Spence, to name just a few, have really kind of shone and given us some bright sparks. But of course, this is all about achievements on the pitch. And given that we are currently sitting on 15 Premier League defeats, it's very, very difficult to stay positive. And it's very, very difficult to see how Ange Postecoglou is going to turn this around. I guess one of my original views was he'd kind of brought everybody together and we were playing better football and so on. Now that has kind of evaded us, we're left with a guy who is kind of repeating the same things time and time again, the same excuses, the same platitudes, and he's now arguing with the media, arguing with the fans, calling out the fans calling out, pundits and so on and so forth, and it's just not a good look, and it's not helpful, and it smacks of a man who is massively under pressure. And I guess that's quite rightly so. We are going through the worst time we've ever had. And of course, the injuries will play a part in that. It's been a really, really difficult one. I personally don't blame the type of football, and I personally don't blame the type of training. I don't believe any of that. I think that's just a smokescreen for the issues. And I think the issues are probably around lack of rotation for players and too many minutes for others, creating this ongoing problem where, they break down because they're playing in, 4 competitions every couple of days. And it's just too much for those players to cope with. The hope was that once we started getting players back, that we would start seeing some kind of run put together. But of course, that's now not happening. And so you have to question the coach about what are you actually going to do? This is where you're earning your money. How do you rotate? How do you motivate? How do you get the best results that you can? And for me, I just think in this situation, it's just not happening. It's just not happening for whatever reason. And I'm sure that Ange Postecoglou isn't a bad coach. I'm sure he's not a bad person. And I'm sure he'll go on and he will be successful in other places. I'm sure that will come, because that tends to happen when people go away from this football club. But for whatever reason, it's definitely not working. Are we in a better place now in terms of the squad than we were when he came? I kind of think so. I think with the youth that we've brought in and the quality of some of those players, I think we're in a good place. But of course, you need constant churn, and so players that are now no longer performing need to maybe start moving on. I'm thinking about Bissouma, potentially Bentancur, Son. Unfortunately, it's just not happening. And so for me, I think time has come to an end. I do think we still have the opportunity to win the Europa. We're still in it, so you've got to keep faith, and obviously I hope that is the question, that is the case. In terms of replacement, I'm just not sure who we get that's going to pull the fan base back together. But I guess the one name that we would have to call out probably is Mauricio Pochettino. I think he's probably the only one that could probably pull the fan base together and buy Daniel Levy any more time, because anybody else coming in is just going to be in the same boat of an 18-month rinse and repeat. And I personally don't want to see us go through that yet again. But I do feel that time's for change. Up the Spurs.
Good afternoon, you ruddy lovely people. Maron from Spurs Kings TV has kindly asked me to do this video, and when Maron comes calling, you don't turn him down. The first question Maron has asked is, where do I stand on Ange Postecoglou? Now, I think most of the first season was pretty poor, to be honest. First 10 games were brilliant. After that, it wasn't great, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. It was his first season. Let's see how things go. Let's give him a chance. His second season has been nothing short of pathetic, really. Are there bigger problems at the football club than Ange Postecoglou? 110%, but he's had 300 plus million. That's more than Conte. That's more than Jose. He's got a better squad than those two managers, and he's doing a far worse job. I mean, the amount of losses that we've had is ridiculous. I think it's 15 in the Premier League and 19 in all competitions. I think it's undefendable. It really, really is. The persistence with tactics that aren't working, constantly inverting the fullbacks. If any opposition manager has a brain, they'll catch us out in transition, put players, as I say, as wide as possible, and then if you can win it off Spurs and quickly play it to those wide players, you've got acres of space to at least create a chance and potentially score a goal. The Europa League, that's all we've got to achieve this season. Do I think we can win it? Realistically, no. I'd absolutely love us to. I'd love to be proven wrong by this manager. And if he does get it over the line, he's technically the most successful Spurs manager we've had in donkey's years. But I can't see it. I think Frankfurt will be an extremely tough tie. I can't see us getting through. And even if we do, Lazio in the next round, I'm not too confident, to be honest with you. I'm really, really not too confident. Thirdly, Who would my choice be if Ange Postecoglou is to go, and what needs to change at the club? What needs to change for me is the ownership. That's the biggest problem. We will never have the success that we want to whilst they are there. But can we get better with a new manager than where we are in the league now, hanging about 13th, 14th, 15th? Absolutely. My personal choice would be Thomas Frank. I've liked what he's done for Brentford for quite some time. I see him get a lot of criticism, but he's taken Brentford from being a mid-table championship club to an established Premier League club. They've lost big players. They haven't spent loads, but he's done a fantastic job there, getting the most out of his players with such a small budget. Pochettino, like most Spurs fans, I'd probably be happy with him as well. Iraola, I quite like. I've seen a lot of people suggesting Terzic. I can't say I know loads about him, to be honest. So my personal first choice would be Thomas Frank at Spurs. I think Ange Postecoglou has to go. I think it's been a mess from him this season. The tactics are all over the place. Some of the stuff he comes out with as well, such as I'm okay with conceding goals. It really is mad. But look, pleasure to be on your channel, guys. Take care. Big up to everyone watching. Subscribe if you haven't already.
Yes, Marlon and Ash, hope you guys are doing well. Video number 2, following on from the video earlier this season. When we were talking about Ange, I did not think he'd be successful. And on my days, guys, what a drop-off since I didn't expect it to go so badly. But this season has been dreadful. And this is the worst manager I've ever seen or I can remember managing Tottenham Hotspur. He's goddamn awful. And I can't believe he's still here. He should have been sacked months ago. 15 defeats in the league, players regressing, shocking defeats throughout the season. We've probably played well in about 4 or 5 games, but it's just not good enough. Ange's system tactics do not work. Even when he had all those injuries, he continued to play the same way, didn't change it up, didn't try and get the most out of the players he had available to get results, and we dropped down that table. Earlier, probably about a month ago, we were possibly getting into a relegation fight. Look, we pulled away from it, but it's just not good enough, guys. Out of the domestic trophies, Ange for me is a shocking manager. I don't like his attitude. I don't know how he speaks to the fans, how he speaks in the press. He was kicking off at the weekend, arguing with fans. How many times has he done that? It's just terrible, and such a depressing season. And a lot of people in shock that he's still here. This is not like Levy. Levy normally sacks managers when they're underperforming this badly. God knows why he's here. It's terrible. It's painful. Like having to watch Spurs every week play so badly. We've got our players back now. We don't look any better. Players, you're questioning the players, they've dropped off massively. You can't tell me that we should be getting more out of these players. I think we should do if you had a competent manager in charge. You look at all the teams in the league who are above us, less budgets. They're doing all right, aren't they? And Ange just does not know how to manage in the Premier League. And that's the truth. Yes, a lot will be on that summer transfer window. It just was not good enough. Too many young players coming in. It didn't help us going into the season. But come on, man. Ange should have spoke up. He knew what he was getting into this season, playing in Europa League as well. And yeah, too many players regressed. It's just not good enough, guys. And look, if it was me, I'd have him sacked over this international break, bring in a competent manager to manage us for the rest of the season, try and win us that Europa League. Now let's move on to that Europa League. So the second question is, can we win the Europa League? Under Ange, I don't believe we can. I don't think we've got much chance at all. He's just not good. He's just not good enough. His tactics. As soon as we come across a decent side, and Frankfurt are a good side, and especially the away leg being the second leg, it's going to be very, very tough to get through. We're just not playing well week to week, which is so open, so naive at the back. Teams can score against us. Anybody can. Anybody can beat us. We've become that type of team now. It's just so easy to play against. And a decent manager will set up the team to get results against Ange. We may get through the quarterfinals by fluke in the second leg if everything goes our way. But again, you get to the semi-finals, you're going to have another tough game and your luck will run out. A lot of fans are now putting all their hopes into Europa League. And of course, man, look, there's nothing more than I want to win a cup and win that Europa League. I will be getting behind the team. But the problem is I just do not believe in the manager at all. And I don't think we have those star players anymore. I don't think we have those players who can take a game by the scruff of their neck. They're massively underperforming in all areas. Look, it's a complete mess. Let's be honest. This season has been an absolute mess, and a massive inquest is needed in the summer. All areas, from the manager, recruitment. But look, moving on to another manager. Who would I want to come in? Now, I would go with somebody like Inzaghi. He plays a 3-5-2 system, but he's always adapting. Sometimes he presses high. Sometimes they go long. This the type of manager who has different variations to his play. So, as I said, they play short sometimes go long, depending on who they're playing against. Inzaghi is one of the most talented managers at the moment in the world. And look, if the club wanted to, if they had any kind of ambition, they would go out and get someone like Inzaghi. And I do think we have the players to play that system with the centre-backs. We've got the wing-backs. Yes, we would need to add a few quality additions into the side to help Inzaghi implement his style of play. You definitely need like a really good ball-playing midfielder, probably need a couple, to be honest, and another top forward to come in. But look, I would definitely go with somebody like that. But realistically, I don't think Levy will. We're probably more likely to end up with someone like Areola, Silva, Thomas Frank, who are all, doing really well for the clubs that they manage with the budgets they've got. They're all outperforming Ange. And I think any of those three managers would do a better job than what Ange is doing. And I think next season, if the recruitment's better, I think another manager, a decent coach, can do good with this side. Look, the ceiling under Levy is challenging for Europe and possibly winning a trophy. But, that's what we're used to as Spurs fans. Is that good enough? Hell no. It's not good enough. I want to be winning leagues and Champions League. But under this board, unfortunately, they don't have enough ambition to do that. And I really do hope these protests keep going and everybody keeps speaking out and challenging the board for their 24 years of failure managing this club. So thanks, guys. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch up with you all soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your boy Mr. Box Office from Mr. Box Office TV. Giving my answers to the questions that Spurs Kings TV want me to answer from the last video, my predictions. And first question they want me to answer is, where are you at with Ange Postecoglou? And quite simply, I want him out. Don't think he's a very good coach. His tactics are absolutely awful. Not getting the best out of the players he's got, adapting to the players that he's got. He's making players, putting players in round holes. The inversion I don't enjoy at all. I don't enjoy watching his football anymore. And I don't think we're getting anywhere with this guy. And he's had 18 months. That's all I've got to say on that question. Second question, can we win the Europa League? And the simple answer is no. I think Frankfurt or Lazio probably in the semi-final will beat us, and then we'll be out of all competitions. And the third question, if you want Ange out, who's your number one target, and what do you want to change? What changes do you want to see? And the answer is quite simple. Mauricio Pochettino back at Tottenham Hotspur. For me, he should never have got sacked. It was the wrong time. It could have been earlier, maybe, and got somebody similar to him, but he had more credit in the bank than I thought. And that's really, really a simple thing. I think we need to get back to good coaching, player development, and someone that can adapt. And that's it for me. But I've got someone else just to think about that I've done a little bit of research on, because there are some good coaches in Europe. Hence the reason why there was a Areola that's just come into the fore. Hence the reason why we had Pochettino that came to Southampton that did research. Hence the reason why we've seen Thomas Frank come up. Hence the reason why we have Marco Silva. And then there's Eddie Howe as well, who, congratulations, won the Carabao Cup. Ingo Perez. Very interesting character, very interesting manager, who Areola knows a lot about, who used to be, Ingo Perez used to be his assistant at Rio Vallecano. So just someone to just think about. And that's it.
You all right, everyone? Hope everyone's good. Oh, a couple of questions here. What do I think since my last Ange video? Nothing's really changed. For me, the man's got to go. The amount of stats and everything and records this man has broken on the bad side of everything, he's got to go. I don't like the man's tactics. I don't like his style of play. I don't think he's got half the players on his side, and none of them can seem to play his style anyway, and he just can't adapt. For me, the manager's got to go. The question is, can he win the Europa League? Of course he can. Anyone can. It's a cup. I mean, you can get the worst manager in the world with some of the worst teams out there. You can win a cup with a bit of luck. You can win a cup through 5 poor games and 2 good games, or just a bit of luck. A cup can get you that far. 38 games in a season? No, that ain't getting you. You're not doing it on Ange's tactics. But can he win the Europa? Of course he can. Do I think he will? No, I don't. But anything's possible. No one can tell me for a fact that we're not going to win it. Not yet, anyway. I mean, a replacement manager, I know who my ideal one would be. I would love to get Inzaghi from Inter Milan. He would be brilliant for the job. I think he would suit the players. Obviously, we need some new ones. His style would suit the players a lot more. But is he a player I feel we can get? Is he going to leave Inter Milan and come to Tottenham? I don't see that happening anytime soon, especially since they're going for their second league on the trot. I've heard a few about other managers, Thomas Frank, Iriola, Silva. I can only go more on what I've heard of people and what I've checked up a few things. I would say Iriola after Inzaghi. The reason I go for him is I like his style of play from what I've seen. I like what I've heard of a lot of other people as well. I think he has a better relationship with his players. I think we'd get better members of staff out of it, better coaches. And I think he would be ideal. A learning manager as such. You can see he can adapt. You can see he's willing to adapt, unlike Ange. And yeah, I would probably go for Iriola. I could quite happily take Silva as well. He seems to do the same thing. He seems to be willing to adapt. He seems to have more than just one plan on his side. But the thing you can argue with both these managers is, what have they won really either? But I'm that far out with Ange now, I'd even stick Ryan Mason for the next 3 months. The thing is, I'll say this much, and I know I'll get a few grills for this, but if Ange goes and wins the Europa Cup, we got to give him a start for next season. Whether you like it or not, got to give credit where credit is due. And if he goes and wins that Europa Cup, he succeeded something at Spurs that no one has done in how many years, win a trophy, and a European one at that. My man's got to get at least half a season next season if he wins that Europa Cup, which he won anyway. What needs to change at the club to make a manager succeed, like Iriola, Inzaghi? I mean, we've had Conte and Mourinho, for God's sake. The main thing that needs to change at this club is the owners. Levy has got to go. He is a virus in Tottenham. It comes from the top. Until he goes, nothing will really ever change properly at this club. But like we've already proven before, you get a decent manager who can adapt to the players he's got, play with the cards he's got, who's got more than one plan, can adapt to games. It can work to an extent. It can get us a cup and possibly start getting us fighting for top 6, then 4th place, and wherever it takes us from there. But what does a real manager need to succeed at Tottenham? What does Tottenham need to succeed? What does anyone need to succeed? Levy's got to go. End of. And until that happens, I don't really ever see much change at Tottenham. I really don't. So, yeah, for me, Ange's got to go. Can he win that Europa League? Of course he can. Anything is possible. Do I think he will? No, I don't. If he does win it, then we got to give him at least half of next season. And to me, that's just being fair to someone. If you're going to grill them for everything they do wrong, you got to say up and say credit where credit is due and give it where it's right. And on the other side of it, what he needs to change and succeed, he needs to get the right formation for the players. He needs to get the players playing the right way to what plays best for the players to get the most out of them. And he needs to be willing to adapt in games and read games a lot better than Ange. But Levy's got to go. Otherwise, nothing changes.
What's happening, boys and girls? I hope you're well. I hope your families are well and you are all keeping good. Where's my standpoint when it comes to Ange Postecoglou? I'm very much still Ange out, guys. The reason being is I have not seen in any way any kind of progress individually with the players or as a team. And his style of playing clearly just doesn't work. And we've just seen a massive decline since he's taken over, with the exception of 10 games that we had at the beginning of his managing career at Spurs. I've seen very little to think that in terms of the team progressing and individually the players haven't progressed. If anything, they've gone the other way. And I just don't think he is good enough for the level required, certainly for the level that I require from my team. Do I believe he can win the Europa? Well, the thing is, at some point in this competition, you will have to rely on your defence. Defensively, you still have to depend on. And whilst I think going forward, we can see something, you know, it's a plan, if you like, in attacking and drills that perhaps they may have worked in training. In attacking, you may have seen that even if in glimpses, but defensively we are still very much shaky, and we can be got at with simple ball over the top. We can be got at, and the more further ahead you can get into the competition and the semis and the finals, you will have to rely on your defensive setup and your defensive line and your defensive as a shape even, and I just don't see when it comes to the crunch. I see us conceding, and we've been too easy. Like I said, we've been got at too easily in terms of not only the chances that teams create against us, but the goals that we concede. So that's the reason. Whilst we're in there with a chance, of course we are. Do I believe we can win it? I just don't. I think we come up short in that scenario. For that reason, it makes me believe that we won't end up winning it. Who do I see to replace Postecoglou? Well, every day we're reading about Pochettino saying how much he would love to come back, and if the clouds align, if and all of that, maybe we could see a return. Wouldn't mind seeing his return. Would I not? Of course I wouldn't. Areola's been spoken about very well, although his team's injury concerns this year, although they've not been anywhere near as bad as mine, that concerns me, the amount of injuries that he picks up in his team at Bournemouth right now. But he's an exciting manager. Probably around the same sort of. He gives a lot of Poch vibes when Pochettino was his age. So he's an exciting and up-and-coming manager. Eddie Howe, of course, freshly winner of the New York at Newcastle Carabao Cup. So he's an exciting. But listen, we need a coach. We need a manager that can really coach players, that can really better young players, and that can really better the team both offensively and defensively. So those are the sort of managers that come to mind. That I wouldn't mind seeing returning for Pochettino's case, and of course Areola, Eddie Howe, and things like that. But above all, before any other managers, the ethos of the club has to change. We have to show ambition. We have to show that we are willing to do whatever that needs to be done to bring Tottenham back to the levels that, in my opinion, should be at. And that requires ambitions. And it starts from the board, it starts from the hierarchy, goes to the manager, to the players. That has to change, because if that doesn't change, nothing will ever change in terms of trophies or where we wish to see Tottenham. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, comment and subscribe to the channel, guys. And as always, forever always, come on you Spurs.
Hi guys, 3 questions Marlon's asked me to answer. The first one about Ange. I've been Ange out since February 2024. I was Ange in after the Chelsea game, November the 5th, 2023. You know, we were unbeaten up until that game, and myself, like many others, said, you know, wait till all the players come back, you'll see the difference. And when the players started to come back, I saw that nothing was going to be any different, and I didn't expect us to get much better. We continued to lose games. I think we lost 7 games from January through. And quite honestly, I wanted to give him a chance. I didn't think he would last probably until December. But, you know, I wanted to give him a go because I wanted him to succeed. I might not like him, I might not rate him, but I wanted him to succeed. That people might find that difficult to believe, but that's the truth. But let's be honest, you know, 16 defeats in 2024, and we've got 19 defeats this season, which is just crazy amount. And 35 defeats since November the 5th and that crazy Chelsea game. 35 defeats. It's the worst record of any manager that I can remember. And, you know, he came in with a breath of fresh air, you know, smiling, joking, laughing. Now he looks like he's depressed. Saying he's not bothered, he can go ahead and get a new job elsewhere. But, you know, blaming the fans, not once, repeatedly, he's more than once he's done it. You know, Man City game last season. Shame he wasn't as bothered for the Arsenal game. When he was asked about the Arsenal game prior to that, he said every game's the same. Well, when we went 3-0 down, I didn't feel like it was the same. So to get the huff and get at us for wanting Man City to win the title, not necessarily win that game, but to win the title, you know, making out everyone was cheering, that wasn't the case. Away fans having a go at them, his reaction to the game against Fulham, where he wasn't abused, he was asked, you know, what is that shit, you know? That's not personal abuse. He might not like you, but it's not personal abuse. So for me, it's Ange out. It's time, I'm afraid. Can he win the Europa League? Yeah, he can. He can. Because, you know, I think the players, whilst not up for the other games, when it comes down to it, they definitely want to win a European trophy, become legends. They don't need to win all 4 games. They need to win the 2 home games, draw the away games to get to the final. And anything is possible with a full strength team and them being fired up. Let's be honest, a lot of them have had a lot of time off injured. So everything is possible. Really, everything is possible. I'd love to see it, and I'd love to be standing here apologising to Ange should he do it. But no, come what may, I'd like him to go because I don't think the long-term future is with him. Who would I like? It's a hard one, this. I like Iriola, I like Frank, I like Hoeneß. You know, I'll take any of those. My original 3 before Ange came was Slot number 1, Gallardo 2, and Amarin number 3. But that ain't going to happen. So yeah, I'm torn between Iriola, Frank, and Hoeneß at Stuttgart. But let's hope we go on and I'm proved wrong and we go on to lift that trophy, because I'd love to be wrong. I just want to taste. We all want a good night to remember for the rest of our lives. So let's hope it happens. Come on, you Spurs.
Big up to everyone watching this video. Big up to the boys at Spurs Kings TV, and make sure you subscribe. Marlon has kindly asked me for another few questions to ask. Simple. He wants some answers. He told me to keep it under 5 minutes. Let's see how that goes. The first question he asked me was, has my opinion of Ange Postecoglou changed since the last video? And the simple answer to that is no. Nothing's changed. If anything, it's compounded that I was right about this manager more than anything, because we're just progressively getting worse and worse and worse. Nothing tells me that what I said before was wrong. Nothing. Ange is a very, very poor manager that has proven that he's not great. And that's fine. Not everyone is going to be the tippity-top great manager, right? He's just not it. I think he's so shirty with the press. You look at the reaction against Fulham with his reaction to a fan. Like, how many more times does this have to happen? Someone gives criticism and his reaction is just over the top. Look, what that guy said, I sit there and go, maybe you don't need to do it, but he's a fan that has a vested interest in his football club, and he will be here when Ange goes. He will be here when these players go. And if that fan will still be here. So, no, I'm not sitting there, I'm not condoning abuse. I didn't think what he said was abuse. He was asking a question. And the manager just loses it, and his reaction is, well, you're not a football manager. Well, that's not how it works, right? We all pay our money, and we all watch football in whatever way possible. We all have an opinion. It's a reason why it is what it is like on football chats right now. We wouldn't be on YouTube having these conversations if you can only have these conversations if you're a football manager. It doesn't work like that. So, to go back to the question, has my opinion changed? No, not in the slightest. My opinion hasn't changed. As I said, it's compounded it. I can't wait for him to go. My concern is he's still here. No matter what, he's still here. And that worries me. Question number 2 was, can Ange win the Europa League? Well, yeah, we're in the mix, so of course we can still win it. That doesn't mean that we will. Can we or will we is a different question. Look, you can fluke your way to a final and win it. Let's be fair. There's no one left in the tournament that you go, oh my God. Like, for example, there's not a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, a Bayern Munich team in there where you go, they are so far superior. But what you've got some hard-working teams. I think Frankfurt we got next. Hard-working, good team. Bilbao, hard-working, good team. With all their flaws, Man United, you got Lazio, Bodo Glimt. For me, one of those teams that you don't want to play against Bodo Glimt. I think they could beat Lazio, and you'd look at them and go, wow, fair play to them. They're a good, well-oiled machine. Very good little club, and credit to them. So, getting back to the question, can Spurs win the Europa League? Well, yeah, of course we're in it. Of course we can win it. Will we? I just don't think we are well-drilled enough. I don't think we're not street smart away from home. That worries me. I look at us and we go, we don't go away from home and go, kill this game. Look, we'll win it at our place, we'll kill it away. What I have said, and I advocate it, I stand by it. If he wins the Europa League, you kind of can't get rid of him, because I think it would defeat the point. That's my standard. I know other people have a different view on that. For me, if he wins the Europa League, you have to stick by him, whether or not I like it or not. That's just how it works. But I don't think we're going to win it, personally. I don't think we're going to win it. I don't think we're street smart enough away from home. But we could get lucky. That's the best answer to it. And finally, the final question is, who will be on my number 1 replacement for when Ange does go? It's a great question. I think there's about 4, maybe 5, maybe even 6 managers in the pot where I would look at. I think the obvious ones are like the Thomas Frank, Marco Silva, Iraola, Pochettino, These are the names that I'm hearing a lot of them floating about. If I was going to pick one of them, for me, I think a lot of people will say Pochettino. I think we'll see on this video, a lot of people will say Pochettino. For me, I would say Iraola. And just by watching the way he builds his team, sets up his team, I would love it. I think Iraola would be a breath of fresh air for us. I think it'll be something new and it'll be something that we can build on collectively. I think he's a very, very astute manager and a very, very good tactical manager. So that's who I'm going to pick. I bet you there'll be a lot saying Pochettino. Understandably, like what Pochettino did for us was great, and I think there is unfinished business there. I don't think he is the right fit for us right now. But look, at the moment I can't stand Ange, so I don't mind who it is. But look, at the moment, my opinion is I'd have anyone at the moment. Right now, I'd have Ryan Mason. It's that bad. Like, genuinely, I can't stand this manager. I think he's crap. So I've gone way over time. Guys, as I always said at the beginning of this, like and subscribe to these amazing people. Take care. Peace out.